Good evening, one and all. A happy Friday to all of you. We are happy to be back. The HOKC live stream. We got a good show for you tonight. We are going to talk about Josiah Wilberger's problems with the Texas screwworm, which is just horrific and terribly gross. But it's actually a listener suggestion, so stay tuned. We're going to tell you who suggested that. We are going. Welcome back, Sam. Also, we are welcoming back Sam, who's become an integral part of this show. Good to have you.
Thank you. I'm enjoying being here as always.
I think you're going to be a wonderful pot stirrer tonight. Sam is going to save his hot take. We're bringing in a Friday hot take. I don't even really know what it is yet, but it's here to engage with the chat. We're going to have a little fun on a Friday night. We were also talking before I went on how I need a haircut. Sam needs a haircut. Everybody needs a haircut. So
especially if we get into summer here in Texas,
we already know that. Keep the comments limited on that. We know we need haircuts. It's coming. But this is going to be a fun one. I had the topic suggested by, I believe, Engineer. He will be here tonight. It is Chuck, but I believe that's Engineer. When he gets in here, I'm going to shout him out. But it is about Josiah Wilbarger, who is, the Wilbargers are a dynastic name in early Texas history, really particularly early Austin history. Sam and myself are both, it's not the dox you, Sam, but we're both residents of Austin, Texas. And there's a lot of, for it being kind of a, I think you can safely say kind of a hippy dippy town, a tech town as well, a university town.
Boy, it's gotten worse too.
I know. And ever since
it was bad enough when I got here, and that was 20 years ago.
But if you talk to any Austin resident, they're going to tell you that it's gotten worse. Like, it's not like it used to be, and it's been like that for 50 years. And I don't disagree with them. But it's interesting how much that juxtaposes with what Austin used to be, where they're just around these nice sushi places and these beautiful parks are landmarks to just terrible events. And we're going to talk about Josiah Wilbarger being scalped alive. Let's go like 10 minutes into the show, because that way YouTube is a little more generous with what they'll let me talk about. But the screwworms were it's called the New World Screwworm. Good band name, but a horrifying animal name. And it only feeds on live animals, or humans as well. And so we'll talk about how these plagued Josiah Wilbarger for the rest of his life, and one other incident. And these are both pulled from Indian depredations in Texas, which, Sam, if you don't have it, I would highly recommend picking up your own copy. It's a great bathroom reader, and it's just a collection of short stories that you can sit down and read, and it doesn't take all day. It's just like 2 or 3 pages, and it gives you a real sense of being happy to be alive in the present day. Like, no matter what story you pick, you're just like, well, that's pretty terrible. And it's screwworms and scalpings and dead horses all through. So this will be on, if you guys are just coming in, I usually post a link to purchase, but everybody kind of knows where to find it at this point. This is going to be Indian Depredations in Texas, the Josiah Wilbarger chapter. And let's talk a little bit. Like I said, we'll get to 10 minutes or so in before I really dive into it. But just to kind of give you guys a sense of where this is happening, this is going to be really, what would you call this, Sam, where the Tesla factory is now? Is that like southeast Austin?
Oh, you're asking me for directions. I'm like, that's
I would say, though, it's on the southeastern. If we had to generalize it, it'd be kind of the southeastern reaches of Austin. Have you ever driven by it?
No, I don't think no. See, I'm a North Austin.
Yeah, it's very.
And by the way, if you're from Austin, right, you're either a North Austin person or a South Austin person. Okay. And South Austin people don't go north of the river, and North Austin people don't go south of the river.
It is
just kind of how it is.
Binary. Yeah.
And I don't know why that is necessarily. I have some theories, but
well, you could kind of sum up real quick for the listeners what the divide is. Like, what would you sum up what a North Austin person is?
It really is the Colorado River, right? It's the river.
Would you say you see a little bit more of the tech industry and the business people north of the river, and a little bit more artsy below the river?
Yeah, probably. That's probably a fair distinction. But it's the south of the river is the kind of the younger crowd as well. A lot.
I'm actually south of the river. Thank you.
I know. Next time you move, I'll try to work on you and get you come up north.
It's a tough conversion to make, but
yeah, for whatever reason, South Austin people don't ever want to come north, and North Austin people don't ever want to go south.
There's no natural explanation for it, but it's a true phenomenon.
It really is, and it's not just I know the people in the chat have to just take our anecdotal evidence of this, but it really is kind of a there is almost something, I don't know, spiritual about about it.
It could be. There's something to that.
There's something some gotta, I don't know. What is it? Vampires that can't cross water, like running water? I don't know.
That actually leads me very nicely into my point about the Tesla factory. Elon chose to be north of the river, Sam. So let that say what it may. Okay. Just putting that out there. But it's obviously, I drive by it. I used to drive by it pretty frequently with my old job in South Austin, or just north of the river. It's huge. It's a massive building. It's kind of curious to me how there's never, at least at the time, there wasn't a lot going on there. But it's a massive building. It's I
probably have driven by it. I just don't remember.
Well, the point being that it's a worldwide hub of technology. Many people especially that are very into progressive technology would hold it to be a modern day kind of, I hesitate to say a mecca of sorts, but certainly a landmark in kind of the progression of technology and electric energy and so forth. And it's just another kind of wonderful or terrifying juxtaposition in history that it's 2 or 3 miles away from some of the most horrific things in all of Texas history, and certainly within the Austin area, like lots of kidnappings, lots of the killings of entire families, lots of ambushes and stuff like that. And tonight we're going to talk about one of the kind of original homesteaders of Austin, who made his home around Hornsby's Bend, which is a couple miles away from the Tesla factory.
Abby wants to say hi. She was trying to get my attention. You want to say a hi, Abby?
Dogs are very popular on the stream. That is Abby.
That's Abby.
And there's another dog too, right?
Bailey is here as well, but she's probably not gonna.
Keep in mind,
she's here, but she's not gonna.
We are a fully.
I may have to stop and give them something to.
That's what I was just
so that they'll leave me alone.
We are a very pro dog show, as pro dog as it gets. So if you need to give them some treats or potty, not a problem, anytime. But so the Josiah Wilbarger is one of the original homesteaders. The Wilbargers are a well-known family in Texas history. Really, the book we're going to read from is written by a Wilbarger. But Josiah Wilbarger probably suffered the worst fate out of all of them. He was out on, I believe, like kind of an expedition.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna let you read, and I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah, go ahead, man. I'm gonna set the story.
Here, I'm gonna show the other dog too. You can see there too. Yeah, see that they're now not gonna stop until I give this.
There's proof that they need something.
I know. Yeah. All right, I'll be back in a minute.
Have at it, dude. No hurry. What's up, Theo? I'm just figuring out how to hang the pictures. I've been kind of working on that. I've got to. It's not as easy as you would think back here, but it's getting worked out. Patrick, what's up, man? Gerald, good to see you. I know we started a little early today, but we're gonna go for a while, so no worries. I have a German Shepherd. She's a goofball. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting another dog. Absolutely. My dog passed away in the fall, so I've really been looking forward to getting another. They are nothing more fun than having a dog. Those are great dogs. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so we're going to talk about Josiah Wilbarger, and just prefacing the story, I'm going to read it from Indian Depredations in Texas. But he's out on a bit of an expedition in the wilderness. He's just like 4 miles or so from where the downtown Austin area is today. And he goes by this springs area known as Pecan Springs. He gets ambushed with 2 of his buddies. His buddies get taken out, and the Comanches think that they're referred to as Indians, but it's most likely that they're a band of Pennateca Comanche. And Josiah does the old, like, I'm going to fake like I'm dead thing. But it seems like, like with bears, it's, what is it? Black, fight back, brown, lay down. Is it something like that?
Yeah, because,
well, he did the wrong thing.
So yeah, you play dead with brown with brown grizzly bears.
That's what I was
because they don't eat carrion. They won't eat carrion. They want to eat you while you're alive.
Eating him. Like, they scalped him anyways. And you'll see in the story, what are we at? 10 minutes in, I can get a little more graphic. In the story, he talks about, okay, being ambushed. Certainly the most chilling thing for me is that he didn't feel anything when they do this to him, right? They scalp him and he doesn't feel anything. But he does hear this like thunderous rumble, he says, which is just like super gross to me. But he survives, and he's got to walk around for the rest of his life with no scalp, just exposed skull, right? So he's got this exposed wound, and the screwworms get into that, and that's a whole issue, right? Obviously, it's a whole thing. But eventually, and there's pictures of this guy, eventually he heals up, and he's I think he remarries, but he is doing some work around his farm and tries to go into it sounds like a shack on his farm. And if you've ever been around historic buildings, a lot of times the doorways are like kind of low, almost like inordinately low. They're uncomfortably low by today's standard. But he was going into the shack and whacked his head pretty hard. And that, I guess it was just a downhill ride from there. So ultimately, you could say this is a fatal wound, I guess. Is that safe to say? Like 15 years later, it still like
it killed him eventually.
Yeah, like it was long term. But this is really a legendary figure in Texas history. You can look up his picture. I think YouTube will give me grief for showing the picture. Even Sam, if you want to look it up, you'll get an idea of like what he looks like. But whatever you think he looks like is what he looks like. Whatever you think a 19th century guy with no scalp looks like, yeah, that's exactly what he looks like. This is more kind of focusing on the screwworm aspect of it, which if engineer is in here, I don't see engineer in here yet, but this is from engineer who sent me this suggestion. The screwworms were a phenomenon then. They're called the New World screwworms. They only feed on living, generally it's animals, but on like open wounds on living creatures. They're becoming a problem again. And in researching for this episode and finding out kind of the general info behind the screwworms, I came across an interview by one Dr. Philip Kaufman from Texas A&M. What is it? Entomology, the study of bugs?
Yeah, that's entomology.
Yeah. I always kind of mix it up with the cake names, entomins. But this guy is not the greatest entomologist in the world. Look, I think I'll say in my opinion, because I don't want him to sue me, but on two respects here, he's really not living up to the moniker of Dr. Phil. I think we should only call him Dr. Philip. But Dr. Philip predicts all throughout this 6-minute interview that came from us, I think 6 months ago, that the screwworm has been eradicated from Northern and Central America. It can easily be contained below the Panama Canal, that the last vestiges of our problems with it were, I think, 50 years ago, back in the 70s. And before then, I think it had been back in the 20s before we had a problem with it. But if it starts to be pervasive in the Northern and Central American territories, it can really devastate both livestock, particularly cattle, but also sheep, horses, etc., and wildlife, particularly in the southern regions of the United States, deer and other game animals, right? It's devastating on both fronts. And old Dr. Kaufman over here says, there's no way it's not coming up here. And it's like, well, I got news for you, doctor. It's here now, right? Like, this dude Clearly, he might know a thing about other bugs, but he's not the best at predicting what the screwworm is going to do. I would say that. If you want the interview, I was going to link it, but you can YouTube Dr. Kaufman screwworm. It's one word. Also, did you know it was one word? I thought screwworms was 2 words, but apparently not. So, without further ado, let's jump into this. Sam, if you have any questions, let me know.
Life finds a way.
It does, doesn't it?
That's a good comment. That's
listen, if you have a weak stomach, by the way, I'll give you a what do they call it? A trigger warning for that.
Warning,
so,
yeah,
it's a little, I guess I've kind of already talked about.
I thought about looking up the picture and I decided not to.
I saw you didn't look like you were too.
I did not look at the picture.
I think the point stands though. Well, just imagine what you think he looks like, and that's what it looks like for sure. And this again is a rather brief kind of overview of the entire story. And I'm going to start if you're following along, I'm going to start on the 3rd page of the story here. The title is Josiah Wilbarger. Let's see. What else have I said? If you are looking on a map, this is going to be in the Pecan Springs area of Austin, up on Springdale Road, and I forget the cross street, but it is about 4 miles northeast of the downtown area. What's up, Skywalker? Good to see you, bro. Theo, Patrick, we got Patrick already. Maximus, what's up? All right, we're going to jump into it. You guys hit me in the chat if you got any questions. Sam, if you got any questions, he's going to fire them at me. Without further ado, we jump off into the deep end. This is in 1832. In the month of April, Austin, with his surveying party. Oh, sorry, this was from. I started on the wrong spot. Guys, even the best of us make mistakes. Sam, keep them busy. I'm lost here. There you go. Good job.
I did want to say. So yeah, it's entomology is the study of it. Not to be confused with etymology.
Etymology,
which is the study of it's a linguistic the linguistics of where words come from, right?
Both are important, but
they're both important. But the etymology is probably something we're more likely to talk about on this channel. But not today. Today it's entomology, I guess.
All right. So thank you for that distinction, though, because I do get entomology. I just get a little bit. I know the difference between etymology, but I'm always kind of unsure that entomology is the study of bugs. I know etymology is the words, but sometimes I go, eh.
See, I mix them up.
And I don't want to be around a lot of entomology.
Yeah, it's
etymology.
Etymology is okay. Entomology, I get that there are people who enjoy studying insects.
I'm glad you do.
It's just not me. That's not me. No, thank you.
The
extent of my insect knowledge is how to kill them.
I'm trying to eat
when
buddy.
I need to.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to have a nice meal here, and you're talking about screwworms. Let's see. Maximus, what's up, bro? Great reading voice. Oh, thank you. It depends on who you ask, but okay, so we are getting started here. Early in August, I believe this is 1832, Josiah Wilbarger came to Hornsby's, which is about another mile away from where the Tesla factory is. It is still called Hornsby's Bend today, about due west of the city of Austin. And in the company of a man named Christian, Struther, Standifer, and Haney, it's a hunting party of guys that I think have just had a recent wedding. They rode out in a northwest direction to look at the country. So they're on a bit of a scouting. I've read also they were on like a hunting scout. When riding up Walnut Creek, some 5 or 6 miles northwest of where the city of Austin stands, they discovered an Indian. Again, it doesn't specify what tribe, but it's pretty safe to say a Pennateca Comanche. He was hailed, but refused to parley with them and made off in the direction of the mountains covered with cedar to the west of them. It's still there today. If you look west of downtown Austin, they refer to them as mountains. Today it's called the hill country, right? Like, Sam, would you call that mountains to the west of Austin?
No, I would not, because I've been to actual mountains, and
yes.
So.
But I digress. Like, he's talking about the hill country. And when he says he was hailed, in general, they don't just start shooting in a lot. It's not wise to just start shooting when you see a native, right? Like they can't tell from this distance. It could be a friendly tribe, and like, why try your luck, right? So they try to say like, what's up, bro? Like, come on over here. Maybe we have some things we can trade, something. And the native just takes off. Almost all the time when that happens and you follow them, like we talked about with the Mongols, it's drawing you into an ambush. Okay. They gave chase to the Indian and pursued him until he escaped to the cover in the mountains near the head of Walnut Creek, about where James Rogers settled. That's a tough sentence. About where James Rogers settled afterwards. Walnut Creek is kind of western downtown, like not kind of like West 6th Street. You know where I'm talking about? It feeds into Town Lake. So it's downtown Austin today. Returning from the chase, they stopped to noon and refreshed themselves, like basically chill out and have lunch. And about half a mile up from the branch of Pecan Spring, 4 miles east of where Austin afterwards was established, in sight of the road now leading from Austin to Manor. Wilbarger, Christian, and Strother unsaddled and hobbled their horses, but Haney and Standiford left their horses saddled and staked them to graze. While the men were eating, they were suddenly fired upon by Indians. The trees near them were not large and offered poor cover. Each man sprang to a tree and promptly returned the fire of the savages, the author's words, not mine, who had stolen up a foot under the cover of the brush and timber, having left the horses out of sight. So we can kind of break this down real quick. In this area, it's very brushy. The trees themselves do not have big, huge trunks. So what he's saying is like there was no tree to hide behind, and the Indians attacking them got into this, you know what I'm talking about, Sam, like that really thick brush. If someone's hiding in there, you can't see them. It's kind of the worst of situations. And also at this time, they only have single shot rifles and pistols. So it's almost how would I phrase that? The bow and arrow is superior to it in many ways.
Yes, because you can fire much
just
quicker.
The rate of fire, right? Mm-hmm. And also something that I was thinking about lately in reading this as well, the silence of it. I don't know if it's entirely silent, but you're unable to find where it was fired from.
Yeah, it's quiet enough. Yeah, that is actually one of the areas where bows and crossbows are superior to firearms, is that they are much quieter.
And I just think this is the craziest era of Texas history to me, because it's like, maybe if I have a repeating revolver or rifle, I'll think about it, right? I'll think about going out there with you. Maybe we got to rescue somebody or something. We can talk about it. But if you're going to hand me a single shot rifle or a pistol that's going to take me a minute to reload, I am out. It's not happening. You guys can go figure it out, but I'm not going with you. All right, continuing on here. Excuse me. It's not as easy as you would think to read these old sentences either. Wilbarger's party had fired a couple of rounds when a ball struck Christian, breaking his thigh bone, which is a bad injury. Strother had already been mortally wounded. Wilbarger sprang up to the side of Christian and set him up against a tree. Christian's gun was loaded, but not primed. A ball from an Indian had bursted Christian's powder horn. Again, just all bad. This is very like a Vietnam scene to me. Like you're trying to prop the wounded guy up against the tree. He's essentially bleeding out. The enemy has hit his ammunition supply. They've broken his powder horn, meaning he has nothing to prime his rifle with. He might as well not have a rifle. It's essentially useless at this point. Wilbarger primed his gun, so he primes his rifle for him, and then jumped again behind his own tree. At this time, Wilbarger had an arrow through the calf of his leg and had received a flesh wound in the hip, which is in itself gnarly. Scarcely had Wilbarger regained the cover of the small tree from which he fought until his other leg was pierced by an arrow. So we're very much, all right, to me, this is evocative of, have you seen Ace Ventura 2? You must have seen it. You haven't seen it. You're in my same generation. So there's a scene in Ace Ventura 2 where he meets with a local kind of Zulu-esque, Maasai-esque African tribe in pursuit of some kind of local animal, let's say like an elephant that's being poached. And in order to prove his manhood, he has to go through all these tests, right? And they throw a spear at him and it beds itself into his thigh. And he goes, ah, ah. And then they throw another one and it embeds itself into his other thigh. And he goes, ah, ah. And then there's a scene where he's just going, ah, 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 ah. And it's very, to me, it's like, oh, poor Wilbarger is just kind of like losing his mind at this point because he's got, you must know at this point, your chances of survival are almost nil. And you would almost prefer death because if you are caught by the Comanche, I mean, it's a death sentence. It's a matter of like how long they're going to prolong that. And they take great glee in the prolonging of that and you can probably speak to how common this is in the pantheon of human cultures, but they believe that there's a real spiritual power to be drawn from the suffering of their enemies.
Unfortunately, they're not unique in that in human history.
So basically, Wilbarger's best option is to hope that they just overrun him and kill him. Let's see, where was I at here? We got that. I had to talk about Ace Ventura real quick. Okay. Scarcely had Wilbarger regained the cover of the small tree from which he fought until his other leg was pierced with an arrow. Got that. Until this time, Haney and Standifer had helped sustain the fight. But when they saw Strother mortally wounded and Christian disabled, they made for their horses, which were yet saddled, and they mounted them. Wilbarger finding himself deserted, which, okay, we can talk about what you would have done. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback. But they did bail on him, no?
They did. And, it might have been it's possible that the alternative was to say he'll die.
But okay, I don't want to digress too much, but could you maybe explain, they're Christians, right? Could you explain kind of what their philosophical duty might have been? Is it okay to for them to have preserved themselves and bailed, or should they have stayed and fought?
I think that I hope never to be in that circumstance in my life, and so that I never have to find out. It's one of those are kind of the things that are so outside of normal human experience that it's really hard to judge
because of the in extremis nature of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not a, I don't think it's a, I'm not comfortable passing judgment on people like that in another way, because it's I don't know what I would have done.
It's very easy to retrospectively look back and say, "Oh, I would have."
Say, yeah, I would have not abandoned my friend there or whatever. And it's well,
maybe
there's also a in the chaos and kind of noise of battle. I mean. Maybe they looked over and thought he was dead, and then they said they looked over and but he's gonna die, and they could have just told themselves that they thought he was dead. And there's it's not right, but it's also understandable.
Yeah. And these are also young men in their early 20s in general.
Mm.
So it's well, there's also that. These are very, very young men, which I think colors the situation as well. But the author, who is Wilbarger's kin as well, he does define Wilbarger as being deserted. So we're going to go with that for now. Wilbarger, finding himself deserted, hailed the fugitives and asked, meaning he's yo, bro, don't leave me, and asked to be permitted to mount behind them so that they might stop and help to fight. He's saying, let me hop on the horse behind you. He ran to overtake them, but wounded as he was, for some little distance, he was able to cover just a small distance. He was struck again from behind by a ball, which penetrated about the center of his neck and came out the left side of his chin, which is super gnarly in and of itself. So keep in mind also, as you're reading this, he's got a chin and a neck that's basically blown out, and two thigh wounds, a wound in his calf. This guy is in dire condition, and it's only going to get worse. He fell apparently dead, but though he was unable to move or to speak, he did not lose consciousness. He knew that when the Indians came around him, when they stripped him naked and tore the scalp from his head, he said that though he was paralyzed and unable to move, that he knew what was being done to him, and that when his scalp was torn from his skull, it created no pain from which he could flinch, but sounded like a distant thunder. The Indians cut the, I don't know if I can say that, of Strother and Christian, but the character of Wilbarger's wound, no doubt, made them believe that his neck was broken and that he was surely dead. This saved his life. Another cutting irony of this story is that really the neck wound and his chin being blown out ultimately saved his life, at least. I might kind of, I don't know how grateful for that he can be. All right, finishing up here. When Wilbarger recovered consciousness that evening, he was far advanced in his condition, meaning it's pretty bad. He had lost much blood, and the wound was still slowly ebbing from the blood was still slowly ebbing from his wounds. He was alone in the wilderness, desperately wounded, naked, which is adding to it, and he was still bleeding. Consumed by an intolerable thirst, he dragged himself to a pool of water and lay down in it for an hour, because he's overheating as well. When he became so chilled and numb that that's a tough one. He then became so chilled and numb that with difficulty, he finally crawled to dry land. Being warmed by the sun and exhausted by loss of blood, he fell into a profound sleep. When awakened, the blood had ceased to flow from the wound in his neck, but he was again consumed with thirst and with hunger. After going back to the pool and drinking, he crawled over the grass and devoured snails as he could find them, which appeased his hunger. Honestly, you might pay like $50 a plate for that now in Austin. No? Right? The green flies had blown his wounds while he slept. Critical part here. And the maggots were at work, which pained and gave him much alarm. In another one of these accounts, we'll see them mention that the maggots got to the guy's brain because of a bullet wound in his skull, which he survived, but they ate clear through. So this was a serious problem that they knew about, and it was something that Wilbarger has nothing to defend against with right now, right? Like there's not much that he can do to sanitize himself. So he's kind of just got to let these bugs squirm around his open wound. It's less than ideal. As night approached, he determined to go as far as he could towards Reuben Hornsby's, about 6 miles distant. So if you're in northeast Austin, you would make a beeline for the Tesla factory, essentially. He had gone about 600 yards when he sank to the ground, exhausted, under a large post oak tree and well nigh despairing of life. Those who have spent a summer in Austin know that in climate, the nights in summer are always cool, and before daybreak, some covering is needed for comfort. Sam, any take on that? Would you say it gets that cool in the summertime?
I would not, but I would say that maybe by but I live with air conditioning, so
Yeah, fair.
It very well could be that my perspective on that is just too skewed by the.
I was just going to say that's not my experience. Maybe that's the 1830s experience, but
yeah,
I don't know about that now. Continuing on here, Wilbarger, naked, wounded, and feeble. He wants to drive the point home that he's naked. Suffered after midnight intensely from the cold. No sound fell on his ear but the hooting of owls and the barking of coyotes, while above him the bright silent stars seemed to mock his agony. That's a hell of a line. We are now about to relate 2 incidents so mysterious that they would excite our incredulity were it not for the high character of those dying. Were it not for the high characters of those who were dying who to their dying day vouched for the truth. I'm just going to cover one. Let's see. It is the very end of this story. This is a tough one to find. So just one second. It is. Uh-oh, I think I lost my place in here. Well, guys, I could sum it up pretty quickly. So Wilbarger lives to about 43 years old, right? We talked about this a little bit already, but he's always plagued by headaches. He's always plagued by these infections. It's not just the one time that it gets infected. They get infected with the screwworms and they clean the screwworms out. Infected with the screwworms and they clean the screwworms out. But it's just like a hellacious ordeal that he endures for the rest of his life. And he's always kind of got these, we would call them today like CTE symptoms, right? Like memory loss, changes in moods, stuff like that, likely from these concussions and injuries that he suffered here. But he finally gets to, I think it's 43 years old, and he is doing work on his farm, working away in the morning, whacks his head, and something, neurology is very curious, something in his brain just goes haywire, and he's essentially, I think, dead within a week to 10 days. It's just like that was the last straw. He couldn't recover from it. And it's an unfortunate, one of the more ghastly and ghoulish instances, certainly in Texas history. And I had read this story several times, but the screwworm's involvement would have been entirely overlooked were it not for engineers' email. So we want to thank you for this ghastly little bit of entertainment, engineer, if you're not in here yet. Let's see. If you guys have any questions on the story, let me know. I'll put you in the chat here. I just thought that, Sam, what's your take? Is that 1 to 10? How bad is that on ghoulish history stories for you?
I maybe a 6, quite honestly.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd say 6 or 7 on the overarching scale.
I've heard worse.
It depends on what you got to think about it in the most granular possible detail, like the actual worms wiggling around and stuff. And it's like, well, I'll bump it up to a 7 for that if I really think about how awful that would be and how gross. But it was also something that you saw throughout ancient history. It was something that armies dealt with, something that conquistadors dealt with.
Parasites, and is the kind of, there's so much that our modern medicine and the modern world just has kind of eliminated from human. It was just part of human life for thousands of years. That it's shocking to kind of think about.
Yeah, I don't think we can even really fully understand it from a modern perspective. Like looking back, it's like, you're kind of just, it's, you're observing it from hindsight, but you can't really understand how bad that would be. And it's just life to them. Like you don't really hear them complaining that much. It's just kind of like life.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of the way things are. But
I'm still, with all of today's failings, I'm glad to be alive now. I would say that. Let's see. Jake Skywalker says it's usually 8 or 9 a.m. It's usually hot by 8 or 9. I think he's a local Austinite. It's all relative. We have some cool mornings. If it's in the shade, it's nice. It seems like 7 a.m. What do you think, Sam? I think like 7 a.m. is when it's like worse. Maybe 6. Maybe 6 is when it's the worst.
I mean, and when it's that early, it's still okay. I think 6 is still probably okay.
Maybe it's because I expect it to be cool, but it's always muggy.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's well, yeah, and we've had a wet summer so far too. That it's
true.
It's just been very muggy in general. The humidity's been way up.
Let's see.
This whole year.
If you see anybody in the chat that you want to address, just let me know. Then we're going to get to Sam's hot take. Fly fishing with my brother tomorrow, says Patrick. I have a friend, Cody Lindsay. I don't know if I should say his whole name. But anyway, sorry, Cody. He good buddy of mine. He's taken me fly fishing quite a few times. I really enjoy fly fishing. Let's see.
I've never gone fly fishing. I have gone normal fishing.
You would really like it. It's a really intellectual thing. Like, I mean, fishing in general, I think is overlooked in how intellectual and strategic it could be. I wanted to be a pro bass fisherman when I was growing up, but the actual man, these guys know they will tie their own flies. It's just such a thought out thing, and there's such.
I don't think I just don't have the. I don't think I have the patience for it.
I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I would do it. Well, I don't know, man. I don't know. I enjoyed it. You got to give it a shot at least once. I think you would enjoy it more than you think because it's just such an intellectual exercise. If you guys haven't noticed, Sam is an intellectual cat.
I try.
Let's see. I think I've well, if I'm missing anybody, we'll cover them at the end here. But we're gonna go to Sam's hot take. I've been wanting to bring in some kind of like some measure of controversy and something on Fridays that we could do that's fun. So I thought like, well, let's
controversial stuff. Yeah.
Let's bring Sam in because it's hard for me to come in. I need somebody to come in with their own hot take. I feel like I've hit all my hot takes already.
I want to talk about. We were kind of talking about last time I was on. We were talking about kind of weaponry throughout the ages, and one thing I was thinking, and I've been thinking about since then. This is going to be our topic for tonight. We're going to talk about psychological warfare and the kind of psychological aspects of combat specifically, and how that kind of works, how it's changed, and one of the kind of areas where I think we get into real problems in the modern world is that we don't understand this well enough, and we think we understand it a lot better than we do. And that there is the for most of history, it was your psyche. You broke the will of your enemy before you broke their anything else. Before you broke their bodies. Before you broke their armies. And this is a kind of a thing that's happened is since really since World War I, and then continuing on from there, we have not figured out psychological warfare, like refigured it out. We're operating under kind of paradigms that I think either don't exist anymore, or we're trying to or we just don't understand how they work.
You mean the world as a whole, or the United States specifically?
I think the United States is uniquely bad at this. But the world as a whole, it is kind of something that's happened. There is the specifically what I want to. My point in this is that I think that there's a kind of a misconception that you want your enemy to be confused. And that's actually, I don't think is correct. And I don't think it's the kind of, in a kind of ancient classical kind of military strategy is what you're aiming for. Now you don't want them to know what you're doing, but you don't want them to put them like there's a difference between you're having your enemy be in a state of panic or fear and having them be kind of confused. Okay. And I think that there's a really kind of an interesting distinction here, because when people are afraid, they behave in predictable ways.
Wait, you said in predictable ways or unpredictable?
Yes, in predictable, yeah. People who are afraid behave predictably, right? Because fear is a very universal, and it's a very powerful impulse.
So you mean like if somebody sees a bear in the woods, they're gonna run away? I mean, whatever. Like how they're gonna act.
There's predictable responses. When you're in an emotional state of fear, right? You're gonna behave in certain kind of predictable ways.
So you do want that, but you do not necessarily need your enemy confused.
I think that, and what I mean by confused is that there's this kind of I don't think how I want to phrase this. Is anyone in this chat familiar with the theories of Colonel John Boyd? Any Boydians in this chat?
I can't say that I am. I bet you we have at least one.
Who knows who that is?
This group is
It's
wild.
a little bit obscure, but this will be a good interesting topic to talk about. So Colonel John Boyd was an Air Force colonel during the Korean War. And after the Korean War, he was tasked by the Air Force to the U.S. was winning fighter engagements in the Korean War on like a 10-to-1 ratio.
Really, our first implementation of the jet fighter, like the Sabre.
Yeah. And one of the things that was kind of unique about that is that our fighters on paper were actually inferior in many ways, in some ways to the MiGs of the time.
The Soviet, they would be the North Koreans would have procured them.
Yeah, I do not remember the numbers, so it was the MiG something. But anyway, so Colonel John Boyd was a former fighter pilot, right? He was tasked with finding out, like, coming up with a reason for why we were winning, why we had won these kind of fighter engagements to the extent that we did, when on paper the specs of the planes looked better for the communists at the time. And what he came to the conclusion, and he there were a couple of things that our planes, that even though that they weren't tuned quite as good, they didn't have the kind of the same level of tuning. There were a couple of features that our planes had that theirs did not, that led to the overwhelming kind of difference in our engagements. One was the bubble cockpit. Right, the bubble cockpit let a pilot could look to their sides, and they had a lot expanded your range of vision, which means you could
your range of vision is going to go from like 4 to 7 it's from like a 45-degree angle to like a 180-degree angle. And so that was, and the other one was hydraulic controls, right? The communists were still using the manual controls, so to move the plane required a lot more physical, like on the throttle, they had to physically yank it. And so by the time, like, okay, so let's say you were out flying around, right, and on a patrol, by the time you saw the engagement, you might already be your arms might already be kind of there's a real physicality to it.
And so the fact that and so those kind of factors started to allow for for the engagements to just go overwhelmingly in our favor, despite, again, that in certain other kind of aspects of the planes, the MiGs were superior. So Colonel John Boyd, he comes up with a theory that's called the OODA loop, the OODA loop, and some people may have heard this before.
I have,
and this is the aspect of this that's somewhat more widely known, although it's still pretty niche. But the loop is observation, orientation, decision, action.
You'll hear it on like a lot of business speakers and motivational speakers, veteran speakers. It has become more part of the common vernacular.
And this is why this is a hot take, because I'm going to say that there's parts of this that I think are wrong.
Let's see.
I've thought a lot about this. I have a close friend who is a very big John Boyd fan,
devotee,
and I've been thinking about this for many years. All right, so the idea is that so there's kind of basically these in any kind of competitive engagement. There's these kind of there's like steps to the decision making process, and the steps are being observations. You observe the environment, orient your orientation, where you are in the environment, decision, and then action, right? And that in itself is like that's a fine way to understand how this kind of works.
Conceptually, right?
Conceptually, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's a good way to conceive that. All right. So the kind of takeaway though was that in order to get ahead in kind of a competitive environment, you want to iterate through your loops faster than your opponent does. And the reason is because every time if you can iterate faster, right? Every time you get to the action stage, and then so something happens, right? Then the environment changes, and if the opponent has not either it's now acting on based off of an is either they're either acting off of information that's no longer accurate, or they have to reevaluate their decision.
Yeah,
like they have to reobserve and reorient themselves in the environment.
Essentially, whoever can get one step or maybe more steps ahead in that OODA loop is going to have the advantage in the fight. And
that's the theory. That's the theory of this, right?
Again, and conceptually, fine, right? That makes sense.
It is. It's the issue becomes I think that this has been used to be like applied to more things than it's actually applicable to. I think that like the people using this in business ideas is a good example of that.
Yeah,
because you're interpreting everything in an environment that was developed basically for dogfighting.
I was going to say dogfighting, yeah,
and which is high stakes combat in very fast paced combat.
It happens very rapidly, matter of seconds.
So I think one of the things is kind of it breaks apart when you actually when you're not engaged in kind of because I think the people who really like this theory they try to apply it to large groups of people
that maybe
rather than just individual and this is I think where the problem is because large groups do not behave this way. They don't behave in this kind of observation, orientation, decision, action cycle, right?
Are there too many variables because of the different types of people, or you say just because they are in groups, their behavior will be different?
Because group behavior is different than individual behavior, and I some people will get mad at me for saying stuff like this, but I think that's the reality.
You're probably right, but they're wrong. So, Well, so are you saying that like we've been trying to apply this OODA loop paradigm to in a geopolitical context? Like,
I think this is a problem. And this is actually a problem. Is that we want to kind of this idea that you want to keep your enemies guessing all the time. Is only really works if you know exactly who your enemy is and you're kind of basically in it works if you're kind of in an arena with an enemy, right? And whatever that arena is, it doesn't work when you have to kind of account for the fog of war and when you don't necessarily know who your enemy is.
Or maybe when you're dealing with dozens of countries at a time, maybe because there's so many, one country might react differently. But my question would just be if Sun Tzu, who's kind of one of the master architects for modern warfare, says you want to appear strong when you're weak and weak when you are strong.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's makes complete sense.
But when you know your enemy.
Yes, but that's the first principles of Sun Tzu is to know your enemy and know yourself, right? Yeah. And you'll find victory in 100 battles.
So right? It's perfectly really contiguous with Sun Tzu's Art of War. What you're saying, it's just that we're trying to apply this maybe cookie cutter way of thinking to.
There's a one of the kind of the things that's kind of happened in the modern world is the kind of rise of asymmetric warfare, right?
Mm.
And part of the asymmetric warfare is that we're not two armies meeting in a field doing battle anymore. Instead, you're dealing with you're engaging not with you're not engaging in with opponents as much as you are with ideas. And
just to be get an idea maybe of where we are now, it would help to know where we were then. So what does psychological warfare consist of when you have two armies meeting on the field in days of old?
So most in kind of the ancient world and up until kind of the modern world, really, and even up into basically World War One, where things really start to change.
Yes.
The armies meet, they clash, a certain number of people die. I'm simplifying things, and then the rest of the people run away. They break and run away. And there's because warfare was designed around formations and units and unit-based tactics, right? And so you would have you marched in lines, you marched in these large units, and that you all kind of acted together. You acted the same. You did the same thing at the same time,
right?
Rather than kind of have then just have one guy doing whatever he wants, and another guy doing something else, and you had these kind of formation-based tactics, and the result of that partially was that when the most cowardly person in the unit breaks and runs, a lot of times that triggers the cascade of everybody breaking and running.
So that's kind of to your point of like, you would rather have your enemy scared, because if they're just confused, that doesn't necessarily break the ranks.
Because scared people act in predictable ways.
A confused person really can act is maybe the most confusing.
There's too many different. That's the problem. Is if you're and this is a issue even historically when there's plenty of times historically when psychological warfare has gone wrong because because it inspired a reaction that was not intended, or people were like they something was done to kind of we talked about this is on our early one of our first conversations about the Crusades, the siege of Nicaea, right? The Crusaders, in order to try to break the will of the defenders, they take their prisoners out in front of the city and execute them all. Because the siege has been going. Yeah,
there's no confusion.
And so but it backfires on them. Because what the defenders do is, rather than they say, oh well, we'd rather go. So we're going to surrender, but we're going to surrender to the Byzantines instead.
If you're not familiar, like the Eastern
Roman Empire,
yeah.
and this was this created a whole big, division between the Byzantines and the Crusaders.
And is that, not to jump too quickly, but is your overarching point like, well, that's kind of what's going on right now? We have so many parties involved that you can scare the other side, but it doesn't even really, you can confuse them and they might go with
it doesn't mean, yeah. And that's the problem is that once you kind of, when you don't, like a lot of our issues, like if you look at, this stuff in Iran is kind of a great example, is that we don't know who our enemy is.
Mm-hmm.
Like really
that's
clearly
exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
I mean, and I don't, and that's it's easy to see that we don't know who our enemy is, because we thought when we just killed the Ayatollah, right, that things were just going to fall apart in Iran, and it didn't. Right?
But what would you say that maybe messaging? Maybe I could say, messaging from the administration about kind of total annihilation, is that a way to kind of take heed of what you're saying and scaring a population rather than confusing them? Like, is that maybe the direction you would like to see? Does that kind of
not necessarily, but it's the point is that we're not well, I'm going to address a question in the chat before I address yours. So
can you click on them, or can you bring them up, or do you need me to bring them up?
Let me see. I don't think I can.
Which question?
The Maximus Meridius Platypus here.
Being scared?
yeah, is one thing, but being scared to the point of loss of control. This is part of why a lot of kind of military discipline and based off of kind of what part of the reason why you have these kind of formation based warfare for most of history, right, is because of that. Is to mitigate individual like people's reaction.
Yeah,
because this is it just goes to go to the point I was making earlier, is that in a one-on-one environment, the kind of OODA loop mentality of this kind of two competing iterations, two loops, kind of like opposing loops trying to iterate faster, makes sense. The problem is groups again don't behave in the same ways as individuals do.
I mean, could you really draw this down to like a UFC fight, right? We have two fighters. Okay, well, OODA loop might work there. What about five fighters? What about 8 fighters? What about, we keep, like, you can keep becoming almost where it's like you don't know what this group of 5 is going to do.
And especially, is it a group of 5 that's acting and like coordinating with each other, or are they not coordinating with each other?
Right.
And this is a in kind of ancient warfare, right? I mean, you fought in these formations because humans are more likely to go along with we are group animals, rather, this is just the reality of kind of human nature. Is that we're kind of on a base level program to want to, we're herd animals, right? We've evolved to live in herds. It's a
survival mechanism. And
you can dive into why that is, and why you can dive into why that is from a biological evolutionary, or from a spiritual. It is the same way, right? It does, it's just, you have different explanations for why that is, but it is like we are group animals. We're kind of on a base level program to want to get along with the people that are around us, and that it's very rare for the people who kind of don't. And in fact, a lot of times we ostracize people who don't want to get along with others.
Sure, we do that on a geopolitical level, on a global level as well.
So there's a lot of kind of discipline in warfare is kind of to mitigate these kind of individual reactions, so that you don't have individual reactions. Is that you can kind of like, you look to your left and you look to your right and you say, oh, well, my left guy, my right, my guy, my right, guy, my left are still fighting. Yeah. So I'm going to stay, because it's like, this is where, because I'm part of this group,
Right. Absolutely.
And so it kind of mitigates that that impulse.
And you're kind of pressuring those two guys by going, you better not break.
Yeah. And that's why, and this is a good, one of the things that's going to happen is that as warfare's moved away from that, we some of these kind of bonds are not there anymore. And yes, I get that even modern soldiers, right, you fight in units and whatnot. But I think it's not quite the same.
Maybe as a hoplite or a Spartan or a centurion or something.
And it's not quite the same, and it's not quite the there's certain kind of I think there's some base assumptions about kind of human behavior that we're ignoring a lot of times when we think about warfare on a larger scale.
Do you think so you're saying, I got 2 questions. Can you explain why you think the United States is particularly, I don't know what a polite way of saying that is, but inept, I guess, to a degree? And was there ever a time that they were, one of the best at
it? So, boy, you're gonna make people angry, but that's why I'm here, I guess. So,
I'm like the referee forcing action in a fight.
I know. I'm thinking about how I want to say this.
Like Big John McCarthy. Come on, guys.
I think part of this is that if you look at kind of how America thinks about itself, we've kind of always been from the very earliest moments in America, we've kind of thought of ourselves as exceptional. and that we're supposed to be this kind of example to others. And one of the ways is kind of,
well, you don't rebel against an empire without thinking that you have the power to do so.
yeah.
Like it really
And so,
requires that.
I know it does. And the I think we're kind of we're even in kind of the times in history when we've kind of treated other groups very badly, which has definitely happened.
We're an Old West History Channel, man. We talk about it all the time.
I know, all the time, right? And this is we kind of we treat other groups badly, but we kind of do it with this kind of guilty assumption that we know we should be better than that.
Is that unique?
I think it is.
Yeah,
I think it is fairly unique to us.
Yeah.
And it kind of it causes certain kind of patterns of thinking, though, that lead us to kind of continually misunderstand other groups of people.
I see. Yeah. Okay. We think everyone thinks that way.
This is kind of one of our problems is we tend to think that other people think more like we do than they actually do. And there's a certain kind of it's a very condescending way to think that that we kind of we want to think of ourselves as we're the kind of the eternal good guys of
Sure.
of history. And there's a certain amount of like
did Rome think that, or did Athens think that, or is that terribly unique?
To an extent, but not in the same ways. And they also, but they justified it differently than we do. That's kind of part of the thing. Rome justifies its superiority through its conquests, right?
Yeah.
Right. Rome's superiority is evident for all to see because Rome conquered you.
Yes.
And that was that's kind of the there's a certain amount of like the reasoning is different, and we've kind of tried to like assume that we're superior, but we don't actually want to conquer anybody.
or we have a touch of Athens in us as well. Like we have this kind of cultural, this aspirational culture that we take a lot of pride in, and
but then like Athens.
I'm not even knocking that. I'm just saying
we also I mean like Athens gets so full of itself though that they alienate everybody around them, and they toss out all their they lose out on some of their own the geniuses that are from within their own society.
Did they go through similar struggles of troubles in utilizing psychological warfare as well?
I don't know about that. I'd have to that would be a topic I'm not going to make.
But you're saying these attitudes have bled into at least our modern day approach to psychological warfare for the worse.
I think so, and that's just kind of my hot take, if anything. I hope this is making sense to anybody. I'm
it makes sense
trying not to just ramble.
We're facing a crisis of sorts in our approach to geopolitical affairs, because we assume that everyone has the same ideals and motives as we do, and that leaves us vulnerable because we are not following Sun Tzu's first rule of knowing who your enemy is.
No, actually, we don't know ourselves. That's actually the bigger problem. So the full quote, by the way, from Sun Tzu, right, is that if you know yourself and not your enemy, you'll find victory and defeat in equal portions. If you know your enemy but you don't know yourself, you'll find defeat every time. If you know you're both your enemy and yourself, that's when you will find victory in
You're saying we are with the second option. We've kind of fallen.
In some ways, we've lost our own kind of identity in this, and that we don't, and so because we don't know ourselves, we can't really, it leads us to kind of not understand what we're fighting against and what we're fighting for.
And maybe to flesh that out just a little bit more from a historical viewpoint, are you saying that this is, in general, a post-World War I phenomenon, or a World War I and on phenomenon or problem?
Yeah, so I think that the kind of the current epoch of history really kind of starts with World War One.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And like we're in this is kind of the World War One, the World War era, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
That and what that did is it kind of it shattered a lot of preconceived notions about how the world worked and about how people worked. And
it's akin to the internet, where it's just like, well, people didn't know. They had no experience with warfare on this level. This was an entirely world-shifting thing. Like there were still cavalry charges in 1914.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the first usage of the aircraft. It's really it's America's first usage of Uncle Sam, I want you. It's recruiting on a mass scale. The world had just never seen anything like this.
Yeah, and that we send massive numbers of people to go overseas. And you know, it's one thing. The American Civil War is like one thing because we're fighting on our own soil, and even like the Mexican American War and other engagements, right. Are
the Revolutionary War. It's here.
It's here, and this is and then we had some kind of other minor wars, not like overseas, but
Spanish American and Cuba even.
But even most of, like, other than the Barbary Pirates, most that was still within our own kind of sphere of influence.
Yeah, within our sphere, right.
And like literally the hemisphere, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It was nothing like World War I.
Nothing like World War I, where we sent, thousands of people.
I believe it's the first 4 weeks. This is from Dan Carlin's Hardcore History Blueprint for Armageddon, I think episode 1. But I believe the French army lost as many men in the first 4 months or maybe 4 weeks as we lost in the entire Civil War. It's almost 500,000. It's like unthinkable.
Yeah. And but part of what makes it even more unthinkable is that it didn't just immediately end after that. How do you lose 500,000 people and
just go right back
and go and still be fighting?
And then lose millions more to the Spanish flu. This just threw the world into a tizzy.
What this kind of showed is that the what World War I kind of showed, and I think without is that you could psychologically break people without without defeating them. You know what I mean?
In terms of like shell shock,
you could just in general, right? Is that you could basically, morale was no longer the deciding factor in an engagement.
There's no more line to be held.
Yeah, because if you say you've got 1 million people, or let's go a little down further. Let's say you've got like 10,000 people on each side, and there's an engagement, and one side gets the better of them, and one side starts to retreat, right? But the problem is that, one guy with a machine gun can hold that line indefinitely.
That was the British motto of. It was whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun and they have not. Meaning this is like, we have the machine gun, so whatever they do, they can send as many people as they want. We're going to mow them down.
And this is what kind of happened is that we didn't know how to react to that. Like this was so outside of the norm that this was the first time in history really where again, you could break the enemy without breaking them. Like you could break them, but people started breaking in different ways, right? Instead of breaking and running, right? You literally break down psychologically.
Yeah, that's what I said, like shell shock.
It's and
we're also seeing chemical warfare.
It's a better way to say that than PTSD, right? Shell shock sounds much cooler.
Well, it's what they would have called it at the time too, and it's like we just saw. We had seen that before, and we had certainly seen post-traumatic stress disorder before, just under different monikers. But like, no, this was the first time that we'd seen it to this level. And they, like, I think that's a great point. Purposefully induced. They weren't sending these massive days-long barrages. It wasn't with the sole intent of killing soldiers and churning up the land. They knew how psychologically devastating it was.
Yeah,
you could just break guys.
And this is the thing is that, and then because you could no longer break the enemy in the field, weaponry had to escalate in its ability to kill many people. Because now that morale is not the deciding factor in a battle, what else is left is attrition.
Yeah, body count.
And this leads us into a second problem that kind of happens with World War I, is that once industrialization has hit a certain point, you can maintain warfare indefinitely.
Yeah.
And there's no, to the point where there's no, where attrition doesn't become the deciding factor either. And this is kind of one of the things that I think has happened since World War I, is that World War II ends with I guess the death of Hitler and also with the surrender of Japan.
Okay, yeah.
What ended wars after
that? Nothing.
Like what ended the Korean War?
It was a police action, right? The treaty between South Korea and
which was signed about 8 years ago.
Just this kind of agreement of a demilitarized zone. I mean, like, it's not a surrender, is it?
You realize that the Korean War has been ongoing in Korea.
That's what I was saying. Like, yeah, it's never really stopped.
It was actually the first Trump presidency that ended that.
Well, that's what you're saying, like, what ends wars, and I'm like, well, almost nothing. Like an entire overthrow of the country.
There's no way now. It used to be obvious when battles would who won the battle, right?
Yep.
There was a certain amount of it was apparent. And this is kind of the now that because kind of we don't know how to interpret victory and defeat anymore. What is victory and defeat in a war? Is other than I guess we say we won or we say we lost, but then like there's no real kind of indication in a lot of these conflicts that have happened post the world wars of did they really end, or did they just kind of like,
we left,
or
in the case of Korea, like we are still there.
Yeah. And
and you're saying that all springs from the United States not knowing them. We do know our enemies, but we don't know ourselves.
Well, I don't think we know either at this point. Because you can't really know your enemy if you don't know yourself.
And would you say if you had to, an easy way to sum this up, on a grading scale, A to F, where do you place in your opinion, where does the United States, what grade does the United States get for its current level of psychological operations capability?
F.
Whoa. Okay. All right.
I mean, really, like, what if we we don't know how to we go into these conflicts without actually understanding what our conditions for victory are. That invalidates basically everything that we do in them. Is if you don't have like any kind of idea of what victory and defeat looks like, then how are you supposed to achieve that?
Yeah, if you don't have conditions, if you don't say we're going to go,
and this is the real. It's because, and my kind of part of my point is that okay, so industrialization, so attrition is no longer the deciding factor, nor is morale, right? Which are historically the deciding factors in warfare. What's the deciding factor in warfare now? And I think there's an answer, but I think it's an answer that people aren't comfortable with.
What do you think the answer
is? It's economics. It's war has just become an extension of economics.
Economics, yeah. It's no longer failed policy. It's
it's yeah, exactly. And it is a this kind of perpetual cycle of warfare that we're in now is not like it has no victory and defeat, but that's intention. It's not intentional, but it's kind of it's unavoidable because the primary motivations are no longer achieving victory and defeat. The primary motivations are in selling weapons, and economic gains associated with that. It's just, and this is a big problem for the United States that I don't know. I hope we figure out, because it's like this is I don't know. There's not a lot of, I think, unfortunately, there's not a lot of the political class that seems to have any interest in figuring this out. And
yeah, what would be your proposed solution to it?
You nationalize the defense industry.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I could see. If you're in the chat and you have
there should be no private defense. The privatization of the defense industry is a bad idea.
Yeah, I would tend to. We've seen that play out, I would think.
Yep.
Let me see. Let me check the chat real quick. See what we've got in here. I don't know if we addressed this one yet. To understand fear is to conquer it. Did we address that? No more important things exist is to place time and effort on other than fear.
Well, yeah, but that's part of that. Again, that's part of why so much effort historically goes into disciplining soldiers. Is you have to basically you have to give people reasons to fight beyond self-preservation. Because if self-preservation is your only reason for fighting, then it's actually really easy to. When running preserves yourself is just as easily, then a lot of times people are just going to run. So you have to give, that's why, again, so the way kind of military, the way going all the way back, the way soldiers are trained in groups and such is because, again, you forge these bonds with the people that in your unit, people you fight with, your battle brothers, right? And it's
even because there's thousands of executions for guys that the officers were licensed to shoot anybody who retreated against orders, and there's thousands of instances of execution for cowardice on the battlefield.
Yep.
Like that. I don't know if that's the last major war that was used in, but there was this real focus on nobody can break the line. You can't do that because the consequences for it would be dire. And if you do break the line, we're going to punish you.
And in many cases, I think that they misunderstood the I think that they ended up shooting themselves in the foot in a little bit by doing stuff like that. Is they forced this kind of different style of warfare where it may have actually just been better if lines break and the rout happens.
They certainly saw that in World War I. They were trying to wedge a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
Let's see. If you see any comments you want to jump on, just let me know. I'm scrolling through here. If you guys want to agree or disagree with Sam, let me know in the comments. If I missed your comment, put it in there again. I will see it at the bottom. If you want to super chat, those really stand out. Let's see. We got that. There's a lot of comments.
World War I is the main war that I would not have wanted participating in any way.
Yeah, no way. That's
the
bottom of the list.
Mm-hmm.
Of all wars in all of military history, that's the bottom of the list for me.
It is. We got great Sabaton songs, but that's about it.
That's
about it.
Not enough to get me out there. Let's see. Maximus says options become few and confusing to an extent, but gut feelings is what I think of to follow often regardless. I think that's a lot. It speaks to the individual experience. It's like, yeah, you got to get these guys to not follow their gut feeling and hold that line.
Yeah. The exactly.
Let's see. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. That is very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because then the way your whole nervous system and brain chemistry works too is that yes, there's just you're the kind of the human psyche is kind of simultaneously our greatest asset and our greatest weakness. In a lot of ways, because it's on the one hand, it has allowed people to tap into tap into unbelievable levels and perform unbelievable feats, in the heat of the moment. But it's also done the reverse of that. It's also at the same time
driven people to do terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Armenian Bishop says, maybe you know something about this. Lenin communist Russia supplied Kemal Ataturk with armaments. He backstabbed the Greeks and the Armenians.
It's not surprising. I mean, I'm not saying that and I'm not saying that a nationalized defense industry is solving every problem, by the way. I'm saying I think it's still better than privatized defense industries.
Yeah, there's no perfect option. You're kind of having to pick the lesser of two evils.
There's an inevitability to the defense industry now. There's not a way around that unless you want to, just be a pacifist, I guess. But see how well that works for.
Yeah, it's not usually pacifism gets you. If you are open to being run over, you will be run over.
The U.S. Civil War is kind of, you start to see the first.
Let's let them know what the comment is real quick. Civil War had a lot of trench warfare from George.
Yeah, yes, the U.S. Civil War is kind of where you see the first instances of some of these kind of patterns taking place. But one of the things that happened when U.S. generals went over. When we got involved in World War I, is we wanted to go back. We kept saying we needed to go back to kind of the Napoleonic style of warfare. Why aren't you doing that? And the generals over there had to keep telling us, because we've tried that and it's tried it, and it doesn't work against machine gun fire, right? I mean,
and I think that's why America held out for so long, because it was just like, we know we're gonna send a bunch of guys over there. A lot of them aren't going to come back. A lot of these people during World War I had parents, family members that had been survivors or killed in the Civil War. People were kind of jaded on this idea for a long time.
Well, and it's the other thing again that changes too is that so prior to World War I, you had early versions of machine guns. You had early versions of machine guns in the Civil War. You had the Gatling gun, and other kind of.
They were not the first. They were the most prolific, really.
Mm-hmm. And but those were much more limited than what comes later.
Yes, absolutely. It's
and
like
then-
a fold phone, a flip phone, as compared to the iPhone that's coming in just a few years.
No, I think it's way worse than that. I think it's like it's even more so. It's like going from writing letters to having
Imagine
an
a flip phone that could kill you, and then an iPhone
Yeah.
that could kill everybody in the room.
Yeah.
Like that.
and it's this and what you saw that happen as a result of these kind of thing is the escalation of weapons technology to a level that had not previously been.
It's almost
And-
worse for some of these guys that they had trench warfare, iterations of trench warfare prior to World War I, because it gave them an idea of how to combat it. They had time to think, and they were like, well, if we had airplanes, we could fight it. If we had poison gas that we could dump into these trenches, we could fight it. It kind of gave them a little time to think of how to work against these trenches. And also in the Civil War, like you're saying, they didn't have, critically, they didn't have the machine gun. They didn't have poison gas. And I think a huge aspect is they didn't have aircraft. And it's not just because the aircraft could attack. It's because and I mean, I understand they had hot air balloons.
Aircraft can scout your line, scout your yeah.
Absolutely.
It's an intelligence asset more than it is a
100%. I mean, it's like if
early strafing efforts were pretty limited.
If you had a pie chart, it would be like 80% reconnaissance, 20% offensive action. But you don't, if you're taking all of those aspects out, the trench warfare in the Civil War is still horrific, but it's not, we haven't reached this advanced level. You're right. It's a bigger difference than
it hasn't reached the point where it hasn't reached the point where the trench war can just be maintained indefinitely.
Oh, good point. Yeah, good point.
Where there's
we flat out don't have the logistics.
We didn't have the logistics and the industrialization.
Let's see. Happy Cappy, what's up? She says you can break people down, but there's no telling what they will come back as. That's kind of our point. If you don't want them confused, you can scare them and you kind of know what they're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. Fear is a predictable response. Fear. People who are afraid behave predictably. People who are broken do not behave predictably.
Right. No. And that you could have 100 people in the room and they might all have a different reaction to being confused, but they will have the same reaction to being scared.
Fear is one of the most primordial emotions that there is. It's one of the first emotions that any human being feels. Like legitimately, right? As an infant feels fear.
There's almost no more unnatural reaction than to stand and fight. That is very hard to instill in people who are not born with it. We've talked before about the minuscule percentage of people in the military itself who actually possess the willingness and capability to shoot, kill, wound the enemy. It's a very, very small percentage of people.
And even a lot of them don't find a home in the military either, because they can't. It's like the problem is with a lot of people who are like that is that there's other things that they go along with those behaviors that
a volatility. Absolutely. And it's not, I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but it's just I think the overarching point there is that we tend to assume that everyone, be it ancient Rome or Sioux warriors or World War I, was willing to fight and kill. And that is simply not the case. And you have to at least instill and train this spirit of not breaking and not responding to that fear with the predictable, outcome of it. It's something that has to really be instilled because it's so critical. One person breaking can fold a whole battle for an entire nation.
Mm-hmm. And that's also why you have large groups, right? The larger the group, the more likely it is for in many ways for people to want to go along, right? Like to just kind of, in a battalion of 1,000 people, right? They're and everybody's kind of marching together and moving together and firing together. There's it becomes easier to kind of enter into an almost a mindless kind of, mindlessly just march forward, shoot, whatever. The one of the things that's going to happen is more first since this though is that our kind of individualized units of soldiers are smaller, like considerably smaller.
Oh, considerably.
So the which in many cases actually increases the psychological strain on them.
Yeah, because it's the same strain spread out over fewer people.
Yeah. So it's
and just to be clear, you're talking about a Civil War army, just for an example, versus a group of soldiers sent out in Vietnam. That would be a very small group.
Which is I think why you start seeing an increase in the instances of PTSD.
Oh, interesting.
And that happen with these. There's a couple of other reasons for that too, I think that it's not that there wasn't, that these things didn't exist prior to the modern us giving it a label,
diagnosis
right?
of it.
It's that they were probably actually much more infrequent.
And do you think that's because that stress is spread out over more people, so it's just like there's more to bear it? Yeah.
Yes, it's yeah, and you didn't have individuals who found themselves in situations where they were exposed to that kind of repeated stressors, like in the same ways.
Good point. It's not just the stress itself; it's the repetition of it, the day after day after day.
Yeah.
Here is an interesting one. I'd kind of like to address this because this is really Maximus is talking about the Seminole Wars. He says, even though I talk about not running or hiding, it is this. Oh, wait, hold on. It is the Seminole who did. This is kind of confusingly worded. But what he's saying is the Seminole were one of the first to really employ guerrilla tactics against the U.S. Army, and this is kind of one of the real first iterations of their struggle against a decentralized enemy. They didn't really know what to do against this non-Napoleonic warfare where the natives, as the Seminoles, they're talking about the Everglades and the swamps of Florida, right? They would hit them and then run and hit and run. And it really, it wrought hell on the morale. Eventually, the Seminole, I think, are the only tribe not to formally surrender because the troops just did not know what to do against this. And it really was kind of a psychological warfare loss, I think, in many respects for the United States. And this spans 2.5 decades, right? So it's another instance in which we kind of like didn't have a firm formal victory. This may be kind of the first case in American history where that happens. Was he the Red Baron? That's an interesting case in psychological warfare in itself. The use of aircraft and the Red Baron used psychological warfare with the triplane. And if you look at colored pictures of circus, they call themselves like a hunting group. The paint jobs are magnificent. There's all these there's like camo paint jobs and red and all these.
They would attack like over the sun. They would like fly like. Right. Attack from the sun.
And to your point, they were largely used for reconnaissance at first, but it developed into like dudes with pistols shooting at each other. And then they developed putting machine guns on them. And if you look at old pictures of the Red Baron, he had suffered a really traumatic head injury in a crash landing, I think the year before his death. But you'll see him he certainly has 1,000-yard stare, and he sits in this bedroom. There's a famous picture of him with like serial numbers tacked up on the wall of all the people that he's killed, of all the aircraft that he's taken down. And it's just like a hunter's lodge, but of like people. And his chair and desk and table and everything is constructed out of aircraft propellers that he's taken off of aircraft that he's shot down. It's rather macabre, but it's also his way of dealing with it, and he's the best in the world.
Well, and it was also used. I think he got used by their own kind of propaganda 100%. Efforts a lot too.
They stuck him back out there as soon as they could.
Yeah, because he was an inspiration. In a battlefield that didn't change much day to day, the kind of the dogfights, was something that people could kind of latch on to.
And it was still harkened back in a war of mud and trenches and gas.
This idea of the aristocratic warrior,
it was knightly.
Mm-hmm.
It very, very much so. But they also were an incredible psychological warfare instrument. And I think that was, you can always, even now, we see that with the drones, where you keep hitting people with new technology that really takes a toll on the morale of the troops, because it changes the variable in that OODA loop. Like where you are and what is happening on the battlefield is now shifted, because I know you think that drones won't be around for long, but they certainly add a new aspect to psychological warfare of the modern.
Well, this is it'll be interesting to see if we get to a point where we're basically just going to have drone versus drone combat.
I've wondered about that, because it's kind of like the old warfare of like Achilles in the beginning of Troy, where you pick your two best guys out and then you have them kind of duel. Like we pick our best.
And by the way, that kind of just happens in history. That's not a unique.
That's real, right? Thing. Like it was a way of saving an army.
That was part of why. Well, it is also like, even in the midst of battle, you idea to have a duel, right? Because it would also inspire the people around you.
I noticed in the beginning of Troy, he kind of says, Achilles says, well, I'm not going to do this. And then the general says, because he's just kind of pissed off, right? And he says, think about all the men you can save. Like, think about all these kids. Like, these kids don't need to be in this fight. Just go out and fight this guy. And I was like, yeah, you know what? There is it's kind of a humanitarian mission of sorts.
Yeah. And I mean, Achilles was kind of I hated the Troy movie.
No, I'm not vouching. There's parts of it that were good. I was like, yeah, that's cool. But as a whole,
movie, there were certain things about it that I just really irked me.
I heard the new one is a stinker too.
The Odyssey, right?
Odyssey, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. Is it out yet, actually? Or
yes, yeah, I've heard it widely panned. If you've seen the movie, let me know in the chat. Oh, engineer, what's up, bro?
I was curious. I want to see. I think we're too early for Greek mythology to become interesting again.
Fair.
No, and I actually mean that. This is another one of my little hot takes. So there are three main mythological traditions that kind of circulate through Western culture, like pre-Christian mythologies, right?
Greek and Egyptian. I'm trying to guess.
No, it's Greek. It's Greek, Norse, and actually and the third one I actually say is the Arthurian folklore.
Okay, yeah,
which is kind of not really it's in between. It kind of bridges Christianity and the pre-Christian kind of.
Yeah, what time frame is Arthurian? Would an Arthurian era be?
Well, it's kind of hard to say, because it's a.
Yes, it's a myth, right? Like
yeah. I'm trying to remember when. I mean. But it's kind of it's in some ways is the kind of foundational myth of the post Rome Europe, because it kind of leads you go pretty quickly from that into Charlemagne, and there's a lot of like similar kind of stories about Charlemagne.
He kind of set a mold for Charlemagne, right? Like he's kind of like.
In some ways,
Little Richard to Charlemagne.
And by the way, like, well, yeah, and it's like, and whether King Arthur was a real person or not is kind of irrelevant. It's like, I don't think anybody knows. There are different theories as to kind of, is this based off a real person? Is it what time period?
It could be an amalgamation of people.
Yeah, and there's not a good answer to that. The important thing is that in my theory here is there's these three mythological traditions. And they emerge and reemerge in kind of the public in
waves.
In waves,
Yeah.
and it always goes. It always goes from you go from Greek mythology to Norse mythology to Arthurian mythology,
In that order.
In that order, and then it goes back to Greek. And this is actually so my reason why I didn't even want to go see the Odyssey, which I normally love. I love Greek mythology. It's great. Is it's too early for us to get a good Greek mythology because we haven't had a resurgence of the kind of we haven't had a proper resurgence of kind of the of medieval romanticism, right?
Yeah, what era are we in right now?
Where we that's where we should be right now. Is that's kind of what like we've ended the so you basically go from so you start with kind of Greek mythology and in the good and the bad, right? In the good aspects of Greek, like the heroic, because you start with like Greek mythology has both the kind of the first heroes,
Sure.
But it also has the huge theme of pervading old Greek mythology is hedonism, right? Is the gods are ultimately hedonists,
yeah,
and and it's all about kind of maximizing your own pleasure, and a lot of the morality is that's what the morality is. All right, so the hedonism of the Greeks is basically takes you into the gritty realism of the Germanic,
yeah,
right, of the Norse gods,
it's the next logical,
yeah, and it's in so Norse mythology is characterized by that kind of that grim stoic realism, and not, to an extreme, like right to a brutal extreme even. That there's just like that there is no morality. There is only die in battle and ascend and go to Valhalla.
Yeah.
Right.
Strong and weak.
There's it's survival of the fittest. Right. Okay. So the natural progression from that is to romanticism, right? Where you have you want to have strength.
There is in fact
you can have strength and honor, right? Strength with honor, and that you can have brutality, but contained by nobility, right? And so and then that will break down when we go back to kind of and then eventually that leads back into the Greek mythology.
Will dissolve into this hedonism.
Yes, exactly, right? Is because that's kind of the.
So you think we're kind of in our Norse era still, and so
we should be ending the Norse. The Norse era is ending. You will. We've kind of like I feel like this is we've had a little bit of an interruption in some of this because Hollywood is just not doing its job and being the cultural, giving us the story.
Yeah,
they're the storyteller. They're supposed to be the storytellers, and they're bad at it. It's which is unfortunate. They should it's too early to go to Greek mythology. So you're getting bad renditions of Greek mythology when you get it, because we're not at the point within our kind of cultural cycle to have a reappreciation for Greek mythology. We actually like if anybody here is a I don't know, is a screenwriter, a producer, or whatever, which I doubt, but the next big thing will be the person who can pull off the kind of medieval romantic epic.
Is Hollywood. That not a Western? I mean,
in some ways, I think Westerns are like you could very easily see Westerns be a but Westerns are interesting because Westerns don't necessarily fit into that mold either.
I was going to say
Westerns kind of bridge that gap between the gritty realism and the kind of and the romantic.
Yeah, I wonder if that's kind of a unique American fourth category that we've added, because, like you said, I feel like it bridges. It's kind of a category.
I think what you can have is you have Westerns that are indicative of either of kind of the Norse and the kind of the medieval romantic.
Yes, those are the two out of those three that I would say
Yeah.
it comprises a
and,
Western.
and because some Westerns can some Westerns lean more into one or the other?
Yes, absolutely.
Very
You have Paint Your Wagon and The Unforgiven.
So you've started to see this trend, like the trend head back to this direction within literature, within popular literature. It hasn't hit cinema yet, because again, I think just because Hollywood is lagging behind in where they should be. Because you've seen like one of the big trends in popular literature is romantasy, right? Which is like romantic fantasy. It's very.
Well, those girls get a little crazy with the romantic fantasy.
Yes, it does, but it is, and there's levels of this that are some of which are normal.
If you got a girlfriend out there and she's reading some romantic book, just leave it alone. Just don't open it.
Yeah, it's but that trend is part of this, right? And so what kind of hasn't happened yet is that the Hollywood hasn't figured out how to tap into the male side of that, which is that kind of the knightly, the chivalric tales, you know.
I don't think they can under the current kind of social constraints.
They can't. That's part of what this is actually part of the problem is that well, it's or that they think that they can't. If somebody actually just does it, right? All
you gotta do is show that it's profitable.
Yeah, well, I think it'll happen.
You know what? Real quick, this is kind of you're seeing this same kind of theme of a problem run through Hollywood as well, where they think that everyone wants to see the movies that they would like to see. Like the same problem with our psychological warfare is the same kind of problem that Hollywood is running into, because they think, well, everyone is like us here in Hollywood, and it's like, no, you've really lost touch with the American public, and you don't seem to even really know where they are within that loop that you just described. They don't seem to know where they are within that loop, and thus they don't really know how to get themselves out of it. Would that be kind of like they're losing their own psychological operation?
They are, and there's so few good writers left in Hollywood now. I think the solution to this will basically be, and you're actually already starting to see this within cinema, is that you're going to have much more you're going to have more small independent.
Yeah, like A24.
Yeah, are going to be the next thing, or you're going to have basically certain writers who have had enough prestige to just be able to do what they want.
Yeah, I think the gap is on the writing, right? Because it seems like we have talented actors, and
you are correct, Vaughn. I am bad at letting people talk.
What do you say?
Sam is bad at letting a dude talk. I that is a problem of mine. I will admit.
Oh, he's been fine with me. I'm not great at it either. I do have to credit my friend Jason, who will come on the show at some point. He hired me at the local radio station, right? And I used to do a show with him most every day, and I was 20 or something like that. So he was just like, "Don't talk over me." So I'm just so hesitant now to jump over anybody. So it's my fault too. I'm hesitant to kick in sometimes. I want to see what you thought about this. Achilles went back to fight after his best friend was killed in battle. You've talked about this before. Was it his best friend or his best friend?
I don't think in the actual. Okay, so let's do you want to get into this conversation? I will give you the honest answer because I think we I don't remember that we talked about this a little bit on
we talked about whether and also Alexander, how they ascribe.
So homosexuality in ancient Greece is not the same as homosexuality today, right? And so there was a certain type of kind of homosexual relationship that men had with kind of their younger apprentices.
You gotta be careful.
It was very typical of ancient Greece, and that it was basically part of especially in military kind of circles, like your mentorship kind of,
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, a mentorship.
Yeah. And the Greeks are not the only group that has had stuff like this. It's, by the way, not at all. But it is a thing that's like that's what it was. It was not homosexuality in the kind of same sense that we think of it today.
What is the nature of the relationship?
Because it wouldn't have been in place of having a wife and kids.
No, and I don't, especially with Achilles. Like, how does that relate to him?
I don't actually. I would have without doing research on this topic. I am not familiar enough to know what depending on what like translations of the Iliad you have, and whether or not the I think for sure that some scholars and thinkers have thought that that it was his lover or whatever.
But this is the same kind of problem we have with biblical translations, I guess. Is like a Greek word can mean it matters what Greek word we're using.
It also matters what time period that you're interpreting these things.
Yeah, you see that with America, where it's like
words change and what
cool could mean something different.
And there was also like so there were certain other kinds of homosexuality too that existed. And even within them, like, so you had other like specialized groups, like you had the Sacred Band of Thebes, which Thebes was a city, was sort of a
I've heard of this
city
before.
state.
Yeah,
and they had an elite unit that was basically composed of guys who had this kind of
lovers, right?
Who had the people in their unit where you fought side by side with your lover, right? And that was kind of this supposed to give you strength and motivation or whatever.
It gave a certain motivation, because it added kind of a layer of.
But even in a lot of these cases, I don't know if the Sacred Band of Thebes, if this was the case, but a lot of the times when this kind of happened historically, is it was not seen as an alternative to marriage. Mm-hmm. It was just something you had in addition to your marriage.
It was we don't have it anymore, but it was a separate classification. Yeah. And they ascribe that in real history to, well, I don't know, some people assume Achilles to be real history, but I was just watching Alexander, and they really drive the point home about him having a male lover. I forget his name at this point, but it's a critical part in the movie, and I think it's kind of improperly categorized.
It is, yeah. If he did, it would not have been with a peer. It would have been with like a younger, probably a boy, quite honestly, who was like his apprentice. But that's the other reason you don't see people be honest, like want to be honest about what this was in history, because it would often be these are things that in our modern sensibilities would be characterized as pedophilia, right?
At least distasteful.
Yeah. But it was a common practice in certain societies.
We had one more. We have one saying that
and Patroclus was his cousin too, not just his friend.
Okay. Yeah. We have one saying that King Arthur happened between 500 and 1000 AD.
Yeah, that's probably the best bet in some ways. There are some who theorize it actually is much older than that. But it's kind of it's unclear. There's not like that time period in Britain. There's not written records, right?
Yes.
It's oral traditions, and again, then the Romans kind of wiped out a lot of stuff that could have. There's different theories as to kind of who the original model could have been.
Did the Romans wipe it out because it was the way that
the Romans did? Like the Romans, it was not like an intentional, we're going to annihilate this particular thing. It was just because that's kind of how Rome.
Oh, but it wasn't. So we're going to get rid of this so that you will pledge a full allegiance to Rome. It was just like, this is dumb. We're going to get rid of it.
It was just kind of how they operated. I don't think there was any kind of thought into it. And well, when they wiped out entire populations, so when you wipe out entire populations, you wipe out the oral traditions, and it's kind of like, I mean, we don't. It's like the groups like the Dacians, right? We don't actually know a lot about. Historians do not know a lot about the Dacians because the Romans pretty thoroughly annihilated them.
Right, and we're used to there being very thorough records of that in the modern era, and it's like, well, yeah, it's amazing that we know that at all.
Yeah. And these are, if there were written documents of, they were either destroyed or lost. And if there weren't written documents, and then there's plenty of languages that we've had that are just undecipherable historically, right? This is the other problem that people don't.
The Rosetta Stone is a miracle.
Yeah, and it was that which led to kind of the being able to figure out hieroglyphics.
If you don't know, the Rosetta Stone, I believe, was found by Napoleon, right?
I do not remember, but it was. They
discovered it.
Basically, they basically found a road sign. It was some kind of like posting, but it was written in hieroglyphics, hieratic, which is the other form of Egyptian writing that's used alongside hieroglyphics, and Greek, right, in ancient Greek. And
it basically kind of let them.
It let them basically decipher enough of hieroglyphics that they were able to piece it together, and it was like that was a huge discovery. And there are certain, the problem is, and there's plenty of stuff that we will outside of finding that kind of amazing find that we'll just never know what there's I think like the Minoan language, right? We just don't like the at least one of the forms of the Minoan language we'll never know. And the Minoans are in Greece and in Crete. Was one of the early Greek civilizations. But like we have lots of their written. We have lots of samples of their written language, but we just don't know what it means. We have no idea what it means, and there's no real way to figure it out.
Because we don't have a Rosetta Stone for it, so we're kind of just
it's that's kind of just the way it is. Yep. And
you might be able to speak to this one. Argos was or is a real place, right? Do you know anything about that?
Argos.
What Argos?
Like the I'm trying to. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
You're asking if Argos is a real place, but I've never heard of Argos.
I like that's like the ship, the Argos.
I'm not sure. Maximus, hit me with another comment, man.
I googled Argos, and it I guess it's a chain of some kind of store in the UK, maybe.
Maximus says, Brandon, you got to watch Broken Trail. Okay, I'll write that down. Broken Trail. I have a whole notebook that I write stuff down in. Broken Trail. Where'd it go? Let's see.
It's like a general store or something. I don't know. It's some kind of shopping center in Chain now. The Argos was the ship of Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah, that's why they're Argonauts, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Broken Trail. Let's see. You know anything about the Garni Temple in Armenia? Dates back to the 1st century AD. It was dedicated to the sun god. Pagans meet there annually to do ceremonies. The Armenians were some of the first Christians, right?
Yes, the Armenians are in fact the first nation to ever convert to Christianity. Armenia, like the Armenians, kind of historically are too, is an interesting group too, because they kind of they've there's been like an Armenian kingdom for a lot of history, but they were kind of, for the most part, they were either kind of satrapies of either the Persians or the Greek empires of the time. They never kind of.
Can you explain that? A satrapy?
It's it's a type of it's like a client kingdom,
okay,
like a puppet state. Not quite a puppet state, but pretty much, yeah. But yeah, it's basically a vassal state is the how you would think of that.
I guess those still exist to some extent.
Yes, they do. They very much do.
But Armenia is located like north of Iran?
Yes, and kind of north into the northwest.
Yeah.
And the exact borders are depends again on the time period.
Did they end up getting absorbed into the Ottoman Empire?
Yes.
Okay.
Which most people did, but it's
but they're unique in how long that kind of.
Yeah, and then there were a group of people that also spread other places. There were Armenians that lived in other places in the kind of in the Middle East as well. because you had like an Armenian kingdom in Cilicia. At various times, you had a lot of Armenians. The Armenians worked a lot with the Crusader states.
We've got Happy Cappy. I don't think we can't say that the G word that rhymes with brooming, but would you say that the apprenticeship was a form of abuse in ancient Greece?
I think that I even in cases like this, I don't like to make. I'm not gonna. I don't think it's. I think it's kind of a fool's errand to try to apply modern sensibilities to history. Like the best I could say is that like, yeah, I get like this kind of practice by our understanding is wrong, and I think it is very very much would be.
Oh, that's pretty messed up, man.
But it's kind of like I can't go back in time and experience what the world was at the time, and it's like I'm just not interested in general of like I want to understand why these things happened and like how they happened, but I'm not really interested in kind of like applying a moral.
It's a fool's
lens to things that happen in history because
it's a fool's errand, and
it's like you can't it's just not our insight into these things is never going to be sufficient to really come to a conclusion on that.
I have an interesting one from Bama Deanna. What's up, Bama Deanna? And hello to Josh also. Sorry, man, I'm just got a lot of chats. Where did the Rus live?
Well, the Rus, that's the kind of the Russians, right? That's
it's the etymology of Russia.
Yeah. And the Rus were kind of what became this kind of the collection of Slavic peoples, and there was a lot, of, and you can look at there was a lot of intermingling between the kind of Rus tribes and the Scandinavian tribes at the time. And so you basically had Rus tribes who were there was a lot of kind of intermingling and intermarrying between them. So you the kind of modern the Rus you could say in some ways are kind of they're a descendant of Slavs and Scandinavians, right?
That's where Bama Deanna's
Slavic tribes and of Slavic tribes and settled in that area, of Slavic tribes that have kind of always lived in those areas, and the Scandinavian tribes that at some point kind of migrated into that area.
Scandinavians meaning Viking? Like, are those interchangeable?
So Viking is the term for the raiders, like the groups that go out raiding. Like Viking is a profession. Okay. Right. Is not a
field.
Yeah. It gets used as kind of to explain, but I could be wrong on that. I will have to look that one up to be completely safe. But I believe that Viking is like you go Viking, right? Like to go Viking is to go raiding. Yeah, I think Viking is like a verb.
It's a verb. Okay.
Yeah. It's the act of going out and like raiding and so. The actual groups of Viking, like there were different Scandinavian groups. You had the Danes, the Geats, the Norwegians, the Swedes, and this different kind of groups. So yeah.
You'll see Armenian Bishop's comment next. Viking is a reference to pirates. Is that right?
So essentially, it's very like would be similar to what we understand of a pirate. Yeah, the Viking was the so. One of the things that happened in Scandinavia is that as their population got too large for their land to actually support, they couldn't grow enough food in their crappy farmlands. Their society developed a way to kind of get around that. Is like, well, we'll just go raid other places. And so you basically like you would have like a planting season and a growing season. Yes. You also in you had a raiding season.
Same thing happened with the Plains tribes,
where they would get on boats and they would go and raid the coastlines
And the people they raided, they looked at it the same way, like, oh, it's raiding season, so we got to get ready for the raids.
Yeah. And then they would take they would either take, sometimes they would take Lincoln, sometimes the groups would negotiate with them and say, we'll give you stuff to you leave us alone. And then sometimes they would take gold and silver, then they would use that, they would take that and trade it with other groups. For
it's like the Comanche, where they weren't just bloodthirsty raiders; they were really pragmatic economically.
There was a pragmatism to it. It was not just raiding for the sake of raiding.
You can only do that so long, and it's like you're kind of just raiding and going home. Whereas if you set up trades, if you set up relationships, you can kind of harvest those as well during raiding season.
And many of them end up because their population got too big, they ended up expanding to other areas, right? That's why they settle in Normandy. It becomes the Normans are.
Is it a similar thing like the United States faced, where there's only the royalty or only the well-off were able in even the early United States to afford land? So there's only so much land in Scandinavia, so that people want. And a lot of your land
is really crappy land.
Yeah, so
they can't grow anything. So
that's why we went to Greenland and Iceland and
and a lot of the British Isles too. There's a lot of the various kind of
clear down to North Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
what was that?
Clear down to North Africa, right?
Yeah, and a lot of them also settled into modern day Russia, and in modern day Russia, and also the Russian Balkan, the Baltic states, right? Estonia, Latvia,
Latvia. Oh, what's the one I'm missing?
Lithuania. Yeah. But it's they settled in those areas as well.
It took them forever to convert. Lithuania took forever to convert over there, worshiping tree monsters and stuff.
Yeah.
Get it together, guys. Vaughn Jackson says Rus and Vikings are different.
Yes. Okay. So but the two groups that did intermingle a lot, and you did have Scandinavian populations who basically settled in those areas and intermingled with the Slavic tribes, right?
They're kind of like half-breed Vikings.
Yeah, that's why the first Russian monarch, the first Russian. I'm gonna look up the name because I never remember. First,
but they're kind of well, we're hanging out in Rus, and then the Vikings show up, and they're all these good-looking Scandinavian guys, so we start families with them. Wait, no. Well, the native peoples of the Rus, the Rus are kind of combination. Is that what you're saying? They're native and Scandinavian.
So we're gonna look this up because this is actually
this is really interesting. I don't really understand this that well. To me, it's they were always there. I don't really think about the origins.
So.
And really adding to that, Vaughn says the Rus lived where Ukraine is now, so that's where the area we're talking about.
Yes. I think the Rus is considered a larger group than that. Just that, but yeah. So there was a lot of the first kind of the origins of Russia, right, as a nation and as a kingdom, comes from the kind of first. There's basically there's Rurik, who is kind of
like the Remus of Rome or the Romulus.
Well, it was a real person, but he's considered semi-legendary, I guess. It was the first prince of Novgorod, and then it's their descendants, they were they married, it was Rurik marries a Scandinavian woman, princess, and their grandchildren, I believe, is it their great? No, I think it's a great grandson is Vladimir the First, who's the first Russian kind of like principality, and
Right.
there were kind of two original Russian principalities, one based in Kiev and one based in Novgorod. And Kiev, which was a little bit first, like I think happens a little bit. Like Kiev is kind of the first Russian principality. Sometimes historically, historians refer to this as Kievan Rus. Sometimes is the kind of first Russian kingdom, and so Prince Vladimir he unites the different kind of Russian tribes, and like he himself, like is a descendant of I guess this kind of semi-legendary figure, and who it is also he's like descendant of like royalty of Scandinavian and like and Slav and Rus, right? Like royalty. So he unites this kind of and so Varangian just kind of mean Greek, means it's like axe wielding foreigner.
Armenian Bishop's comment here is Viking and Kevin Roos were called
Varangian, yeah.
Varangians, okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of what which essentially translates to axe wielding foreigner.
That's apt. Like, what else are you going to call him? That makes sense.
And so yes, I think Rurik was it Rurik who was a Varangian? Yeah, I think Rurik was a Varangian, and like he married a Rus like princess, and like their grandson, I believe, is the first kind of Russian, the first Russian like great prince, and that's Prince Vladimir, who unifies these kind of different tribes, establishes a new kingdom based in Kiev. One of the things he does as a result of that, like after that, is to kind of unify the people. He says, well, we need to find a religion, because prior to that, you just had kind of like these smaller, like localized pagan religions.
They all believe different things, but different bands.
Exactly. So they like he sends emissaries to the different kind of religious capitals of the world. They come back with they say that the faith of the Greeks is best because their churches are beautiful and you can drink.
We'll take it.
Yeah,
that's why a lot of people come to Orthodoxy now.
They convert to Orthodox Christianity, and forge an alliance with the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire. And so then there's that state, and then there's Novgorod, which is to the north of that area.
So if you're looking at modern day Ukraine, it would be north of Ukraine.
North of that, okay. Yeah, is where Novgorod is. It's. I mean, Novgorod's still around. I think you can still go to Novgorod, and it's.
You'll hear it.
Kiev's still around too. For what's left of Kiev.
Yeah, you'll hear both of these cities in modern day coverage.
So the Kievan Rus was basically wiped out when the Mongols came, and but Novgorod kind of survived. And Novgorod became kind of the origins of kind of the modern Russia are. But they both draw their kind of their origins to this kind of semi-mythical union of the kind of Scandinavian tribes that settled in there versus with the Slavic tribes.
Bam is actually saying that they worshipped Odin and Thor. Are these the same people?
So, well, yeah, the Scandinavians.
Viking kind
of so the Scandinavians kind of preserved this. So Germanic paganism goes back further than just the Norse paganism, right? You actually see early kind of like even in like during Roman times, you see early kind of depictions of like Thor and Odin, and they had slightly different names, and there was like slightly different versions, and then that kind of Germanic paganism ends up kind of like becoming Norse paganism.
It kind of migrates north.
Yeah, and one is preserved in the further north because the rest of them eventually convert to Christianity.
Because just by proximity, Northern Europe and Eastern Europe are kind of the last to convert to Christianity, right?
Yes, and the kind of so that kind of well, I lost my train of thought.
Well, because of the Viking diaspora into Kiev and Rus and then Novgorod, they would have initially had some worship of Odin and Thor because that's part of the Viking heritage there. But eventually, this all kind of culminated in their.
That's why you find like Viking or I'm not using Viking because in the term that everybody knows that term. Yeah. You find like Viking kind of artwork and relics in Russia, right? And in those areas in Russia, because it's like that again. There were a lot of the different tribes that settled there. They kind of intermingled with the Slavic tribes and whatnot. So
they've even found coins of a kind of militarized Christ that like. There were Viking coins, but the way they could understand that power was to like give him a spear. So it's like Jesus, but with like a spear and a sword. He's like, ugh.
And they were tended to be more. They had a more friendly relationship with the Rus than they did with like other European areas. The Rus and the Scandinavian, that tended to kind of not be. They had conflict with each other, but they were not. There was a lot more friendly interactions as well.
Why is that?
I guess just different groups of people.
Okay, fair, yeah.
They just kind of intermingled a little bit better. They were used as definitely used as mercenaries and as warriors by the kind of the early boyars
but there's no great unifying factor. It's like, well, they're just bros. Like they just kind of got along.
Yeah, and it's you get the whole kind of and you get a lot of Scandinavian, like so the Vikings didn't just raid, they also were great traders, and so the long ships are kind of are really, they're designed to be river ships primarily, and
shallow waters, right?
Yeah, shallow waters, and they would go. That's why they're shaped the way they are. And they would go down. They would go down the various kind of rivers in Russia, sometimes all the way to the Black Sea, and that's how they would. They would trade with the Greeks too in Constantinople.
They're a lot more like river raiders than I think a lot of people think. But we think they just come in from the high seas.
Yeah, just because our mentality is very shaped by
Hollywood,
by England.
I was just saying the English and the Irish did see them come off the seas.
Yeah. It was probably more common going up through the rivers, but they in the Byzantine Empire, right? You actually had an elite group of called the Varangian Guard.
I'm going to bring that question for that.
The Varangian Guard are awesome. The Varangian Guard are this group of and this was like during kind of this era, right? This was a thing that like was known that you could go if you were a Scandinavian or kind of Rus warrior of like, and you thought you had the, you were really, really tough. Well, who pays real well is these Greeks down here will pay. Like you would go and do you would basically go and enlist in the Varangian Guard. Yeah. Like try out and enlist in the Varangian Guard, and like you would serve in the Varangian Guard for a certain number of years, and then like afterwards you would get like a certain amount of wealth and whatnot. And this is elite group of fighters, and they would like. Let them fight in kind of the more Norse fashion, but with like really high quality armored weaponry.
They paid well for them, right? Yeah. It's like this works out for everybody
because they had a lot of money. A lot of trade flew through Constantinople.
Yeah, it's like the center of the world.
It was one of the largest cities in the world at the time.
You've talked about this one before. Russians defeated Mongols at the Battle of Kulikovo in 1380.
I do not super familiar with that one. We can look that one up.
Yeah, I'm
going to look at who that was.
I'm going to address one real quick while you're looking that up. Engineer, what's up, engineer? You were the catalyst for tonight's podcast. You probably heard me say that, but everybody give a round of applause to engineer. He is the reason I came up with this idea, or he gave this idea to me. He says Wilbarger didn't feel anything because he's talking about Josiah Wilbarger. He didn't feel anything because a musket ball passed through his neck and his chin, and he wasn't playing possum. Yeah, I didn't mean to convey that. He just didn't feel it because he was completely incapacitated. I think that's why he didn't feel it. And that's why the Comanche left him alone, because they thought he was dead already, but he wasn't necessarily playing possum.
So yeah, the Battle of Kulikovo, right? Yeah. There's a battle. It's the Kievan Rus was kind of basically wiped out by the Mongols, and especially the branch of the Mongol Empire of that area was called the Golden Horde, because again, like at this point, they had kind of split the empire, the horde, they had split the empire up into four different. I believe it's four different.
Genghis has died, and now we've kind of split everything up.
Yeah. And the Novgorod is a Mongol vassal state for a lot of this history, and yeah, but you can feel free to look up the details of that battle if anybody is curious about it. It's not one that I know a lot about, but yeah.
Happy Cappy says, I'm Baptist. We don't get to do anything. That's a tough road, Happy Cappy. Sam will convert you.
I will probably not do that, but that's okay.
Yeah, we're like the Vikings. We're not great at converting people. The Armenian homeland was a big chunk of modern-day Eastern Turkey. Crusader Armenian kingdom went west to Mediterranean coast. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there was a Armenian kingdom in Cilicia, which is where Tarsus is, if anyone knows where that is, which is kind of like northern Lebanon, southern Turkey.
Okay, yeah.
That's where Cilicia is, which is the kind of the what that area would have been called at the time. The man, it's like I know where all these areas are from by their kind of the kind of Roman era names. or from the Bible, quite honestly. You read you read like the letter to the Ephesians. I could tell you where Ephesus is. Ephesus is there's a lot of these areas are in modern day Turkey, but they would not have been. There was no modern day Turkey. It
wasn't a modern day Turkey.
There were different areas and different provinces and different peoples that lived in them, and based on different cities.
But for their size, it seems like the Armenians were really punching above their weight for the Crusades.
Well, yeah, they kind of were. I mean, they'd been getting kind of they definitely aligned a lot with the Crusader kingdoms, because it was like, yeah, somebody's fighting back against the Turks here, who as we've just discussed, is the Turks were pretty brutal.
That was, we saw the expansion of Islam after the 7th century rapidly, right? Like we just saw it kind of explode from the Middle East all the way across a large part of Europe. Let's see. Maximus says, we're almost done with the chats here. Maximus says, I think the Greeks adopted Christianity a little later on in history. Is that
than the Armenians?
I guess so. I guess that's what he's saying.
So Armenia and Ethiopia are the first two kind of nations that formally convert to Christianity. But there were different, like there were churches that sprouted up in throughout the Middle East and then later into Europe as well. And so the kind of the Christianity spread pretty rapidly from its
Did it spread from Greece to Armenia though, or from Armenia to Greece?
No. Well, you can't say from one to another, but it because it kind of all happened at the same time as different as the apostles kind of spread through.
Yeah, because you got apostles
and different of them. They as they went places, they established churches in other places.
Yeah,
the other thing that this is in the kind of Hellenic era, and then up in the Roman era, the Judaism was a evangelizing religion.
Yeah, it was,
And-
huh?
and-
Then it was, yes.
And so there were Jews throughout the Middle East, and not Jews necessarily in the ethnic sense,
Of the religious
but
sense.
but had people's, because that was kind of a thing that you did too, is when you moved to a new area, you kind of converted to the local gods.
Yeah. Even within Rome, right? If you moved to Egypt, you would kind of go with their gods, or if you moved to wherever, there was different primary gods within the empire. Is that right?
Well, the idea of kind of geographic
Gods
was a common understanding in paganism, right? Is that it was not a contradiction to think that, well, I'm in Rome, so Jupiter reigns here, but if I'm in Egypt, that might be Ra, right?
And kind of like would it be like, I'm going to move from Massachusetts to Ohio, and now I worship the Ohio god?
A little bit. There would, especially if you settled there in like over periods of time, but then you would also but then they would also spread their own religions in those areas too. It's a mix. It's a mix.
That's a great point.
But as Christianity kind of spreads, like Christianity kind of changes the game in a lot of this. But prior to Christianity, yeah, Judaism had spread throughout a lot of the Middle East and in Egypt as well, and even down in Ethiopia. And so there were different, and in like the Arabian Peninsula.
Did that maybe aid the spread of Christianity, as it was like, well, now
yeah,
we have that
because the bulk of Jews convert to Christianity.
Yeah.
By the end of the first century.
And it's like, well, here is the fulfillment of your covenant, right? It's like, well, now you got the base work laid. Now we can come kind of.
It's actually like it's only a very small minority of Jews that do not convert to Christianity.
It's interesting. It was an evangelizing faith, though. I didn't know that until you told me that.
Well, yeah, because the modern Jews are not evangelizing, and they also they claim that they aren't. They have made a lot of claims about what they historically were that are not actually validated by the evidence.
And they are unique in their, and this isn't like an attack. It's just like they are unique in their kind of insular nature. Most religions seek to convert.
They're kind of in a pickle, because if their actual scholars, right? The kind of scholarly understanding of their own prophecies, the Messiah should have come by now.
Yeah, it is a bit of a pickle. Yeah.
And they're kind of like most, it gets a problem within their for them to have to deal with, because it's they don't have an explanation for why the Messiah has.
You kind of painted yourself into a corner. Really, it's like it's
the modern Judaism is very different than historic and biblical Judaism.
Yeah,
it's been shaped a lot by how Judaism has changed post Christianity.
And again, it's not an attack. It's just an important distinction to really understand. Yes,
and this is not like, again, this is not, I don't think it's a controversial thing, but it's like, this is because you can back this up with archaeological evidence. Like this is stuff.
And it's crucial to understand in that like OODA loop sense of like, well, where am I? It's like, well, this is where Talmudic Judaism kind of is in its current iteration, and how that might affect worldviews.
It's not. So
it's interesting. I didn't know that they were an evangelizing religion up until that point. Let's see. In ancient, Vaughn says, in ancient times, it came to, they didn't fight over gods. It just came down to which gods were more powerful.
Yeah, that's a little bit, that is essentially, yeah. So if Rome conquers Egypt, that means the Roman gods, by their understanding, were more powerful. But it doesn't mean that the Egyptian gods didn't exist.
Did the Vikings feel like that? They're conquering so that their gods are more powerful?
The Vikings were it's a little bit different because they're not up against other pagan groups; they're up against Christianity. And they're kind of there's a bit of a struggle between, and I actually think it's like I think that it's hard to know too, because it's a lot of our it's hard for people to kind of separate our what was actually Scandinavian culture and religion versus the very popular fictional portrayals of these things.
Horned helmets, etc.
Yeah, which is you know, I mean, it's not that horned helmets didn't exist. It's just that they're not typical. There'd be like ceremonial wear, right? You know.
Yeah, it'd be like I don't know. They're like a certain type of, in my view, it's like, well, a certain type of cowboy hat that some cowboys might wear in Montana. It's like, yeah, does that exist? But like most cowboys don't wear that hat. And if it became the default symbol for cowboy culture, we would view that as a little odd. And I think the Vikings are in the same. If you showed them the Minnesota Vikings logo, they might be like.
There's also like there's not, when again we say Vikings, we're not talking about just one group of people either. It's like it's a like we said, it's not even a good term because again, Viking just is a verb.
We replace it with something like plumber. It's like, well, plumbers did this. It's like, well, it's a profession.
You could be talking about the Danes and the Norwegians, the Swedes. You know, I mean, it's like it's different groups of people. So yeah.
I'm gonna check. See one more. We have Turkey was named Anatolia or Asia Minor. I did know that.
Yeah. So, and if you ever hear me use those terms, that's what.
I think if you guys have any chats you want to get in last minute, let me know. And otherwise, we're going to start kind of winding it up. One thing I do want to hit before we get out of here, I got the merch back up. I had to do some paperwork stuff. So Uncle Sam gets his cut. And Governor Abbott gets his cut, and other people. But it's all back up now. So go grab yourself a t-shirt. We got some really cool t-shirts and wall art and mugs and stuff. Also, the new episode coming. Usually my episodes are like 3,000 to 4,000 words. Guys, this one's like 10,000 words. It's going to be like around 45 minutes to an hour. It's going to be a big episode. So that'll be on Victorio's War. That should be out Friday next week, let's say. I've got a compilation coming out for y'all on Monday. Some more live streams this weekend, shorts all the way through. So lots of content coming. But keep your eye out for this Victorio's War. It's going to be the beginning of Victorio's War. It's the biggest episode I've ever done, the most ambitious episode. I think you guys are going to like it, so keep your eye out for that. Just want to plug that. I'm on my own channel, so I can plug stuff, right? It's not selling out if it's your own stuff. I stole that line from Geography Now. If you guys haven't watched Geography Now, go check it out. Have you seen Geography Now, Sam? You might.
I think I have. I probably have.
It may be a little campy for your taste, but I'm a geography nerd, so you might like it. There's a lot of good geography channels. I love geography. Let's see, where are the explorers running into each other? I don't know what you mean by that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, and we'll try and touch on that before we get out of here, Happy Cappy? Enjoyed the visit. Enjoyed seeing you, Armenian Bishop. Good seeing you. Yes. Who's everyone's favorite character in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? I'll take, Clint Eastwood. I'm just going to go with Clint Eastwood. Have you seen a lot of spaghetti westerns? I think you've really.
I have not. I have not seen a lot of westerns in general. To be honest,
you know what you would enjoy is Paint Your Wagon. I promise you would enjoy Paint.
Yeah, you told me that. I don't know.
I said the same thing, bro.
I'm not a huge into westerns. I just have not. But.
Totally. Hey, understandable. Little questionable is why you'd say that on an Old West History channel, but that's okay. I'm just giving you a hard time. B, I got a stream request, bro. Hit me with it, Josh. But yes, I think you would. I'm gonna talk you into watching it at some point. I'm gonna talk you into watching it. I think you'll enjoy it.
You can get me to watch basically anything you want as long as if you watch some of the stuff that I want you to watch.
Oh yeah, you were saying Sam has a show he would like everybody to watch that's called. Oh man, what's it called?
I don't know if it's everybody should watch, but in my humble opinion, the best show that's ever been on television is going to surprise some people. is on Netflix. It's Arcane, a League of Legends story. And I
You
know
sold me on it,
what
though.
people are gonna say. Oh, it's a video game adaptation. And like, believe it or not, that show is the best show that's ever been on television. It's an absolute artistic masterpiece. It is animated, so if you're really turned off by animation, I guess you
Give it
will
a
like
shot
it.
anyways, guys.
I couldn't convince. I was unsuccessful in convincing my parents to watch it for that reason, but it is the best show that's ever been on television as far as I have ever seen.
And it's like a precursor to the video game, or it explains the video game.
You might as well not be a video game.
Got it.
It's irrelevant.
One more time. What's the name so everybody gets it?
Arcane.
Arcane.
Arcane, yeah.
Okay, Arcane. Give the whole thing one more time.
Arcane, a League of Legends story, I think is the full title. But you go to Netflix and search Arcane, you will find it.
Perfect. We've got. Josh says June 17th is the 150th anniversary of Battle of the Rosebud. I will come on and talk about it. I have Siobhan Fallon. She just got back to me. So Siobhan, if you are watching, I will email you back. Sorry about that. It's been a crazy week, but I'm hoping to have her on very soon. I know it probably won't be by the 17th, but really go into the Battle of the Rosebud and the Battle of Little Bighorn. It's a fascinating topic. One of those that I'm not as well versed as I should be. So let's call in an expert. I think you guys will. If you haven't checked out Siobhan Fallon's channel, I'm always pressing it on people. You guys go check it out. If you like this type of content, you will love Siobhan Fallon. She's an expert on all things Little Bighorn. And one of those people, Sam, that like they know everything about it. So I just look like an idiot if I try to talk about it at all. It's like, well, let's just bring her in here. Let's see. So yes, count on that. We'll be doing something for the Rosebud. I think does Sam have a channel? Sam does not currently.
I do not. We are thinking of doing some stuff together in the future. It may or may not pan out. We'll see. But
yeah, we're thinking of starting a separate channel where we can like talk really broadly about history. Give me a 1 in the chat if you guys want to see that, because I'm thinking we can do a live stream here, and then we'll go to the other channel and everybody that wants to come watch. But we'll talk all of the like history and conspiracy and just all things. We
could talk just more about the controversial stuff, right?
Yeah, the controversial stuff. Because here's the deal, guys. Like, we can get as controversial as we want to on a separate channel. I'll talk about whatever. I'm just worried about getting this one dinged because this is like my big channel. But on a separate channel, we'll talk about whatever you want. We'll go into the weeds, man. I'm more conspiratorially minded than Sam, and so I think would that be fair to say?
Probably.
Yeah,
I tend to I don't know. As I think the older I get, the more conspiratorial I get.
That's what happened to me.
That's kind of what happens.
You know what, dude? 10 years ago, I was not conspiratorial in the slightest, and all my friends would get frustrated with me. And now I'm reasonable. I think I'm a 7 on the scale. Okay, I'm not too crazy, but again, we're getting a lot of 1s. You see the 1s?
Yeah.
Not bad. I don't know. I feel confident saying, but I admit. Oh, Josh says, I don't know if I know as much about Siobhan, but I've never met or spoke to someone who knows as much as me. Well, dude, we'll bring you on with Siobhan. Come ask her some questions. All right. I think we're caught up. Anything else you want to touch on?
No, not right now.
All right. So like I said, the new episode's coming out. I'm excited for y'all to see it. We'll have a compilation out on Monday. Go check out the merch. Go grab yourself some. I'm going to get me and Sam some shirts so we can shamelessly pimp out merchandise on the show. Other than that, yeah, you guys go check it out. I'm excited for you guys to see what's coming up. We will work on putting together some another channel for you guys. And in the meantime, y'all have a good night. Take care. God bless. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Talk to you later.
Bye.
1 second. There we go.